All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the October 1st, 2024 Lawrence City Commission meeting. And with that, I will go ahead and get us started off with our executive session and consider a motion for it.
Move to approve a motion to recess into executive session for approximately 30 minutes to discuss a personnel matter involving a city employee pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter exception, KSA 75-4319B1. Oops, that's an old one. That's not the right one.
That's
I
not
had the
what I
wrong-
have on mine.
I had the wrong agenda.
Yeah, that is wrong.
Yeah, I see the
Had the
same.
All of us are on the wrong page.
I see the same one you just read. But yeah, that is probably not.
I have the wrong agenda up.
For October
For B2?
1st?
It was other one.
December 20th, 2022.
You want me to do the motion?
Okay, if you got it, go for it.
I move that we recess into an executive session for approximately 30 minutes to discuss privileged legal communications from the city's attorneys regarding pending litigation pursuant to KSA 75-4319 subsection B2. The justification for the executive session is to keep attorney-client privilege matters confidential at this time. The City Commission will resume its regular meeting in the City Commission room at approximately 5:32 p.m. after the executive session is concluded.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. Four an affirmative. One, is Lisa on?
I'm pretty sure she's probably on.
Yeah, absent. Yeah, okay. All right.
Kurt's trying to vote.
We have returned from executive session and have nothing to report. At this point, we will go ahead and recess till 5:45. Come back and see you then. Thank you all.
Okay, give me 1 second. Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and get it started then. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the October 1st, 2024 Lawrence City Commission meeting. And right now, I'll have Sherry go ahead and give us a rundown of the meeting.
Good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. When the mayor calls for public comment, please approach the podium Please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raise hand function to indicate they wish to speak. When prompted, select Join as Panelist. There will be a brief delay as your role changes. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn on your camera to provide your comments. Please state your name and zip code before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The primary format for accessing or participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Sherry. And with that, I'll go ahead and get us started. With item B, approve the agenda. The City Commission reserves the right to amend, supplement, or reorder the agenda during the meeting. With that,
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, approved, 5-0. Item C, recognition, proclamation, and presentation. And with that, I'll start off with the first one, and it's proclaimed the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I believe we have Jessica Beeson from Willow to present that on Zoom, right, Sherry?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I need to move her. Should be coming on shortly, Mayor. There.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay. Go ahead, Jessica, if you had anything to go ahead and say about the proclamation.
Okay, great, thank you. My name is Jessica Beeson. I'm the Executive Director of the Willow Domestic Violence Center. My personal zip code 66049. Today I'm here to talk about domestic violence. It is an epidemic that significantly impacts our community. It is based in power and control and affects people of all ages, genders, races, ethnicities, and socioeconomic classes. In 2024, the Willow has taken 2,386 hotline calls. We have provided 12,993 nights of rest, and we've provided 14,647 services by the advocates across all of our programs. We are honored to serve our clients and lucky to work alongside so many amazing community partners fighting for stable housing, food, security, and equality. Willow services include our emergency shelter, which everybody is always very familiar with, but we also have community and court advocacy, transitional housing, and we do a ton of prevention and education. The Willow has several events throughout October to celebrate Domestic Violence Awareness Month that are open to the public, and I'm going to highlight a few of them. This Saturday, October 5th, we're partnering with the Lawrence Community Orchestra to celebrate women composers and artists and raise awareness about domestic violence. Next Thursday, October 10th, we are excited to host Miss Kansas 2024 to speak about her platform, Respected, Reclaimed, Advocating for Healthy Relationships. This event is free and open to the public, but we do ask that you register through our Eventbrite site. And then we want to ruin another wonderful movie from our childhood and what we call a nostalgia nightmare, and we host that in addition to the Free State Festival and the Lawrence Arts Center. We'll have a panel of local comedians and domestic and sexual violence advocates that will roast Revenge of the Nerds. And if you own or work at a salon, please join us Monday, October 21st for our Safe Salons training. It is an interactive training, and you will be able to learn how to recognize and respond to warning signs of domestic violence and human trafficking. You can find all ticket and registration information at willowdvcenter.org/DVAM 2024. And I just want to thank commissioners for recognizing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Thank you, Jessica. Whereas in the United States, more than 12 million adults experience domestic violence annually, with an average of 20 people every minute experiencing these heinous acts. And whereas in the state of Kansas, one domestic violence incident occurs every 24 minutes, and one domestic violence murder occurs every 10 days, with one domestic violence incident reported every 23 minutes. And whereas the impact of domestic violence is felt not only by individuals and families, but also by communities and as a nation as a whole. And whereas Lawrence joins with others across the state of Kansas and nationwide in supporting domestic violence victims and survivors, the advocates and organizations who serve them, and holding offenders accountable in our community. Now, therefore, I, Bart Littlejohn, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and in recognition of this critical work being done by domestic violence advocates and allies in the service of survivors and the victims they serve, I encourage all citizens to actively engage in the scheduled activities and events sponsored by Willow Domestic Violence Center and other organizations working towards the eradication of domestic violence.
Mayor.
Okay, our second one is proclaimed September 15th through October 15th, 2024 as Hispanic Heritage Month. And I believe I don't think we have anybody here for this. All right. Is that correct, Sherry?
Yeah, I don't think we had anyone
Okay.
able to attend tonight, Mayor.
All right. Whereas Hispanic Heritage Month has been celebrated since September 17, 1968, when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the National Hispanic Heritage Week bill into law, making a week of recognition and appreciation for the contributions and achievements of Hispanic, Latino, Latinx community in the United States. And whereas on August 17, 1988, President Ronald Reagan expanded Hispanic Heritage Week to a month-long celebration, providing an opportunity for the planning and coordination of activities and events to honor the rich history, culture, and diversity of Hispanic, Latino, Latinx Americans. And whereas the month from September 15th through October 15th is of significant historical importance, as it spans the various national independence days in Latin America and South America, including Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, and Chile, highlighting the deep connection and shared heritage between these countries and the United States. And whereas throughout American history, Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx individuals have played crucial roles in shaping the nation, contributing to every aspect of society from arts and sciences to the economy, and serving with valor and distinction in the United States Armed Forces with over 1 million Hispanic, Latino, Latinx veterans who have bravely defended our freedoms. And whereas Hispanic, Latino, Latinx heritage is deeply woven into the fabric of American life, with rich cultural traditions, languages, music, cuisine, and customs enriching our nation and fostering an environment of diversity, inclusion, and understanding. And whereas the City of Lawrence proudly embraces its Hispanic, Latino, Latinx community members and seeks to promote cultural awareness, appreciation, and unity, striving to create a welcoming and equitable city for all residents. Now, therefore, I, Bart Littlejohn, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim September 15, 2024 through October 15, 2024 as Hispanic Heritage Month, and I urge all citizens and residents to join in celebrating, recognizing the enduring contributions and impact of Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, and Americans on the history, culture, and shared identity of our city and nation. All right, and our last one is, let me go ahead and back here. Proclaim Sunday, October 6, 2024 as Lawrence Drives Electric Day. It looks like Teresa Wilkie will be here. All right.
I want to thank you, commissioners. We also have Michael Almond here. Michael and I are both members of the Sustainability Action Network. We want you to know that better gas mileage, reduced emissions, and decreased noise make electric cars a great choice for drivers. And to show that off, this coming Sunday from 11 till 3 at South Park on Massachusetts Street, at the block of South Park, we're having our 6th electric vehicle show. And this one is bigger and better than any show we have had to date. So our community is really picking up on it. I want to commend everybody. And if anybody wants to see electric vehicles that are available, electric bicycles that are available, this is co-sponsored by many great organizations, including the City of Lawrence. Thank you all very much. Evergy will be there. Some car dealers will be there. We have over 50 cars. Did you want to add anything, Michael?
Thank you, Terry. Hi, I'm Michael Allman. Terry mentioned this is going to be the biggest electric vehicle show we've had in 6 years now. The count of the vehicles right now is 57. We're getting approximately 2 vehicle registrations per day. So we're going to go over 60, I'm sure. And then there are always the, quote, walk-ons. The last time I checked, of the more than 130 electric vehicle shows around the United States during this week, we rank number 8. So Lawrence has one more feather to put in our cap. And as I said, we're getting more each day. I particularly want to thank Roger Steinbrock of the Parks and Recreation Department, and Kathy Richardson, Sustainability Coordinator. They've been very much help in coordinating it and supporting it. It's really how the city endorsement and sponsorship plays out in reality. They've been a great help, so we want to thank everybody with the City of Lawrence for helping.
If you have
Thank you.
time, please come.
Sure.
This Sunday.
Thank you. All right. Whereas petroleum fuel vehicles are responsible for over 50% of our local greenhouse gas emissions and are a contributing factor to air pollution and climate disruption, threatening the health of our citizens and sustainability of our planet. And whereas the United States transportation sector has surpassed the electricity generation sector and climate heating emissions, and whereas plug-in electric vehicles use 1/5 the energy used by internal combustion vehicles and get 100 miles per gallon equivalent or better, and whereas plug-in electric vehicles produce no greenhouse gas emissions when charged with renewable energy and only 1/5 the greenhouse gas emissions when charged with fossil fuels, and whereas September 27th through October 6, 2024 has been designated as National Drive Electric Week throughout the United States to educate our citizens about the benefits of plug-in electric vehicles and promote their adoption. Now, therefore, I, Bart Littlejohn, Mayor of the City of Lawrence, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Sunday, October 6, 2024 as Lawrence Drive Electric Day and encourage all citizens to attend the Lawrence Electric Vehicle Showcase at South Park between 11 and through 3 p.m. Thank you. All right. Also, I'll give anybody the opportunity if they don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, they can go ahead and leave. All right. Item D, consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and approved by one motion. Members of the governing body may remove items for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public may remove items identified as quasi-judicial for separate discussion if desired. Members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes for comments. Any of the commissioner or commission?
Change.
Okay. Commissioner Larson? Not seeing or hearing?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. And looks like we have one quasi-judicial item. I would ask in the member of the public? Yes. Okay. All All right, and I think we only have the one, so that one will be removed. All right, if that's the case, I'll go ahead and bring it back.
Move for approval of the consent agenda with the exception of D9A.
Second.
Have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Approved 5-0. All right, item E, the item removed for separate vote. It's item D9A, and I believe a member of the public removed that item. Would you like to come forward to go ahead and speak to it?
Do you guys all know what this item is? All of you do? Okay. So that the public knows what this item is, this is the Judicial Center and Jail expansion beginning. And this is the first vote that these commissioners are going to take to head down that road with the county. 26,000 square foot space at 3601 East 25th Street. And it's interesting, this has been a topic of discussion at the county commission meeting because the county has overtaxed this county and saved the money, squirreled it away, and been creating a new revenue stream for themselves, making interest off our dollars that are sitting in their bank account to go ahead and do something that the voters of Douglas County said no to. Do we all remember that? Do we all remember saying no to the jail and no to the expansions here? Find it kind of interesting that we have these nice budget discussions that talk about all the money we don't have, and now we're going to go ahead and enter into agreements to begin the process to do something that the voters said no to. Are you sure you all understand what you're doing here? Because what I hate seeing time and time again is these process votes that happen, and all of you vote 5-0 to proceed, and then we get down to the last vote, and you just got to go along with it. This is where we slow it down and we stop it. And I think other people need to come up here and talk about this, and I hope there's people online that are going to address this now, maybe that they've been made aware of what it actually is. You're going to enter into a planning and development agreement with the county to build this. Something that we, the citizens, said no to. So you're going to go ahead and spend our money to do something that we said no to. And then you get mad at us when we come up here and say fuck you a few times. Really. I mean, that's really what we come down to. Discouraging people from attending these meetings, putting these things on consent agendas. If somebody hadn't read into that, the county wouldn't know. And you know, you guys spend a lot of time trying to throw the one guy out of here that reads every freaking item on your agenda every week to prepare for these meetings. I probably prepare more than you do, Mr. Little Man. Matter of fact, I'd probably assure that I prepare more than that. But we citizens cannot afford to continue to go down these paths where we just spend money that we've said no to. The reality of this is that I'm not going to pay for it, Bart, because you're going to make all these shitty decisions and put this county in such dire straits. I'm out of here, man. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to raise hell with you and try to get a few things straight, and then I'm out of here. Do your citizens a favor and don't do this.
Mayor, I just want to make sure, since this item was pulled, you all will need to disclose any ex parte communications.
Okay, we'll do so at this time.
I've had no ex parte communications.
I've had none. No ex parte communications regarding this item.
I have had none. No ex parte communications regarding this item.
I've had no communications regarding this item. Sherry?
Oh,
I have had no ex parte communication regarding this item.
okay. All right. Any questions regarding this item?
More public comment?
Sir?
Sorry, I apologize.
Any questions regarding this item?
I don't think so.
Commissioner Larson?
No, none.
Okay. That being the case, since this was pulled, I'll open it up to public comment here in the room to start off with.
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. A couple weeks ago, LJ World wrote an article titled, "Leader Still Thinks Panasonic Growth Will Come to Lawrence, but City Could Work on Its Image." And in that article, he blames that image on these meetings here where people come in and cuss and say fuck and shit like that. And they say that because of that, these jobs from the Panasonic plant that's over in...
Sir,
I'm getting to it, Bart. I'm getting to it.
Let me pause this time.
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it, Bart.
I'm just trying to clarify that this will be regarding the...
If you would sit and listen, you'd get all the clarity you need, Bart. Just sit and listen. And anyways, so... They tried to say that those 8,000 jobs over in Douglas or Johnson County aren't going to come over here that are with the Panasonic plant. And they tried to say it's because these businesses tune into these meetings and they see people saying fuck and shit. But I got to agree with what Michael is saying there. I think it's because people can't afford to live here. And it has to do with your guys' policies, your guys' taxes. Are we clear enough on what I'm talking about here, Bart? Sorry, I didn't get to it the second I started speaking. You know, it's called context. Anyways, so I'm willing to bet that it ain't what's happening here at these meetings with the citizens talking. I'm willing to bet it has more to do with what you guys are doing as the leaders of this community. Taxes are too high. What you're doing here on this item is another example of that. So my guess is people look at Douglas County and say, why in the hell would I move there when I could just live in Johnson County and it's a lot cheaper and I don't even have to commute over to the work? On top of that, you have all these other woke policies you have. I heard that oftentimes these businesses try to come here and the first thing they hear is that there's all this environmental policy that you guys have enacted, and that's enough to make them go, no thanks, no thanks. So just another woke agenda from the crazy lefties around here, and then you try to blame it on a couple of citizens that come in here and say fucking shit. So I'm willing to bet that homelessness is a huge issue that keeps people from coming here. Again, your guys' policies. I'm willing to bet the crime is a reason people don't come here. We have a terrible district attorney that you all voted in 4 years ago. Just an awful district attorney. You can see week after week, just story after story of criminals either being let go or just these outrageous, non-deterrent sentences. Willing to bet that it has to do with men dressing up in women's clothes and reading to kids at libraries. You know, that kind of shit that normal families look at and go, this shit is insane. This shit is insane. Why would I move there? Why would I move there? So it's not just a couple of fucks and shits here. It's your guys' policies.
Not seeing any additional in the room. Sherry, any on Zoom?
Yes. Stephen Watts.
I just want to point out with this expansion stuff, and it is an expansion of the jail, and it was voted down. It is a curious way, but it's the way we do things around here, I guess. But the 911 center is included in that, and we have had nothing but a conundrum with that. And so we are basically saying, okay, well, we're just going to let the county hold this over and over and over again. But built into it is the fact that the county has washed their hands of the 911 center and give it over to the sheriff. Oh, policeman. No, that's wrong. It needs to stay inside the government, inside Douglas County. And we need to correct within ourselves how much money we pay for this service. It is confusing to the public that the people in the 911 center use a Douglas County Sheriff's Office email address for their personal use. I mean, for their work use. When they're county employees, they don't work for the sheriff's office. Lawrence, the city, what is it, 60% that we send over there to pay for 911 services? So the 911 services will be part of the jail complex. No, it's a bad idea, but it's just something to think about. Thank you.
That's all the comments, Mayor.
Okay, bring it back to us for further discussion.
I guess I would just say this is, obviously this is a quasi judicial matter because it's a zoning matter in which an applicant has put in a application to build something that our staff and the planning commission say meets our rules. So, as it relates to what's being built, we have to be content neutral as to what's being built, and it meets our rules, and so and we have a duty to follow those rules in these quasi judicial items. So I'm going to support the action.
Yeah, I concur.
Okay. All
Go
right.
ahead and move to approve the institutional development plan special use permit UP-24-1003 for the construction of a 26,275 square foot building located at 3601 East 25th Street based on the findings of fact presented in the staff report and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and adopt on first reading ordinance number 10081.
A second motion?
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Approved 5-0. Okay, moving us on to item F, regular agenda items. Consider conducting a public hearing for the vacation of pedestrian easements within Tract A and Tract B in Westwood Hills subdivision, submitted by Westwood HOA Incorporated, considering adopting on first reading ordinance number 10080 to vacate pedestrian easements as described.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Chris Rice. I'm a project engineer with the city's Municipal Services and Operations Department, and I'll be sharing this item if Kurt can help me get the computer set up. So thank you for your help, Kurt. What's before you this evening is to consider conducting a public hearing for the vacation of pedestrian easements within Tracts A and B of the Westwood Hills subdivision. This was submitted by Westwood HOA Inc., which is the homeowners association within that subdivision. Probably the best way to wrap your head around the request is by looking at this figure that was included within the agenda packet. To orient you, north is to the right, but what's shown here in yellow is the area that is sought to have the pedestrian easement vacated. That's this Tract B and Tract A here, shown in yellow. As this subdivision was originally designed, the original developer intended to have trails that were in the rear of various lots. And that's what's shown here in yellow with those pedestrian easements. That being a directive of the developer at the time, it wasn't included in the public improvement plans that included the street and utility construction. It was to be constructed by the developer at a later time. That didn't come to fruition, so in the decades since, these tracks have been maintained by the homeowners association, but they haven't had any trails or other improvements added to them. The homeowners association did a study in 2021 to look at what it would, the feasibility of adding trails within those tracks, and found some real challenges now that the development has occurred and many homes have been constructed. A lot of the slopes between those homes would make accessible trails quite challenging to construct. So the purpose of this action would be to remove that pedestrian easement encumbrance. As part of the MSO review, we did reach out to property owners within 400 feet of the areas to be vacated, and we didn't receive any opposition from those there. And given that, staff recommends approving this ordinance of vacation. The way that this action works is first we would open and close a public hearing on this item where you could solicit public feedback in this space. And then following that, we would be moving to adopt ordinance number 10080, providing for that vacation. So I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions?
Not right now.
Commissioner Larson? Not hearing anything or seeing?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. All right. With that, I will now open the public hearing. and public comment on this item? Not seeing any here in the room.
Give me 1 second to stop sharing, Mayor, just so I can check online.
Okay.
You, Kurt. Okay. Looks like we do not have any public comment online.
Okay. None online. I'll go ahead and bring it back. I think I closed the hearing, right? And then, okay, we proceed. I am now closing the hearing. And any further comments or questions from the commission on this?
I have one, please.
Yes.
Can you talk about what happens to the land once the easement is removed and the ownership specifically?
Yeah, so there's no change to the ownership of the tract. It's a tract that's currently owned by the homeowners association. It would remain that way. It would just not have this pedestrian easement encumbrance upon it.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I would just note before I make the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just the HOA, it does have trails in the area. There's also maintained trails, just not these, and no reason to get them going. So I agree with the vacation, so I'd move to adopt on first reading ordinance number 10080.
Second the motion?
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And it passes 5-0. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item 2, consider providing the recommendation on lane configuration for the 9th Street improvements associated with the Jayhawk Watershed Middle Reach Project, MS-210030, and amend the 2024 CIP accordingly.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thanks for having me today. My name is Nick Hoyt. I'm Engineering Program Manager for the MSO Department and the city's project manager for the Jayhawk Watershed Middle Reach Project. Today, I'm just going to give an overview of the entire project. The lane reconfiguration on 9th Street's a relatively small part of the project in terms of budget and construction impact. So we're going to do an overview of the entire project, talk some specifically about the lane reconfiguration, and then we also have the design engineer JEO here, Stephen Buckley, the JEO, if we want to really drill down into the specifics of the lane configuration. So the Jayhawk Watershed Project, we've been working on it almost 4 years, and it's kind of morphed and changed and grown, and then shrunk and then grew again. And it's been a lot of work, and we're trying to bid the project in the next couple months. But it started about 4 years ago, and it was a modeling project, and we were trying to figure out what stormwater improvements could be made at the lowest price of construction to solve the flooding. And we zeroed in on a section of the storm tunnel from 8th and Tennessee to 9th and Indiana, running through Old West Lawrence and around some businesses there. And if we upsized that storm sewer and made other inlet improvements around it, we could solve the vast majority of the flooding. So that was a different approach than the typical watershed project. Typically, you start at the downstream end and you move up, because if you start in the middle, you start in the up part of a watershed, you tend to make flooding downstream worse. In this particular case, we don't have to do that. We can start in the middle because the lower part of the watershed is all park. So basically, why spend a really large amount of money to keep the park from flooding? We're going to use our resources to keep the neighborhood from flooding and the streets from flooding. So once we understood that concept, we worked on a 60% design of the storm tunnel, and we started looking at other pieces of infrastructure around it: sanitary sewer, water main, streets, and with the impact of the storm project, which is basically putting a 8 to 6 foot diameter storm tunnel 20 feet deep through Old West Lawrence and down 9th Street, we're like, let's fix all these other issues too at the same time. So sanitary sewer replacements in the alleys and on 9th Street. We're replacing a 1916 water main on Tennessee between 6th and 9th. 9th Street street maintenance was also due about this time, So last year's 9th Street project stopped at 9th and Illinois. We repaved from Illinois to Iowa and then stopped at Illinois. And then we were going to incorporate that street maintenance project in with the Jayhawk watershed, or the east half of that street maintenance project in with the Jayhawk watershed, and repave from Illinois to Vermont. At that point, that triggered the city's complete streets policy. So we started looking at safety issues on 9th Street, traffic improvements, different modes of transportation, and trying to figure out a plan to better use 9th Street. So 9th Street is a very tight corridor. It's, I believe it's 80-foot right-of-way, which is the same size right-of-way as every other residential street in that neighborhood. But packed in there is sidewalks and, as much street as you can get with bike lanes and parking. So there's very little real estate there. A lot of demand for cars, bikes, buses are going through there. So it was a complicated process to figure out the best use for that. So we started with traffic studies around the same time, a little over a year ago. The KU Gateway project was was really getting started. So we waited on their traffic study and we incorporated their projected traffic demand for a full build out of the KU stadium. So that the stadium itself doesn't really change traffic 6 days a year. It's the convention center that's being built now, and then the potential for a hotel and student housing or whatever they're going to build on the east side. So we took their best guesses of what that ultimate build out will be at the Gateway project, and then incorporated that with the 2040 projected traffic volumes of 9th Street, and we then started looking at different solutions with those traffic volumes on 9th Street. So just typically now, right, 9th Street at Iowa is a 2-lane road. You're coming down the hill, it remains 2-lane. About Emory, it becomes 3-lane. And then it stays 3-lane to Illinois, and then there's a couple thousand feet between Illinois and Tennessee where it goes to 4-lane, and then it goes to 5-lane for 1 block and then back to 3-lane. So that's, that expansion and contraction of lanes is kind of an anomaly. And the 4-lane configuration in itself is a dangerous configuration because you basically have 2 through lanes in each direction, but the left lane is typically, when things are really busy, being blocked by cars turning left, right? So then you kind of end up with 2 left turning lanes and 1 through lane, and then you have cars rapidly changing lanes to get around that left turning car that's taking up that lane. You combine that where you have a relatively short period between 2 3-lane sections, and then you have cars accelerating aggressively, in my opinion, to try and either get in front of cars before it goes back to 3 lanes, or hey, I've been waiting to get around this car all the way down the hill on 9th Street. I finally have that extra lane. I'm going to, do whatever I can to get around them. So I feel like, in my opinion, that the fact that having a 4-lane configuration in between 2 3-lane configurations actually makes it even more dangerous. So overall, that section of 9th Street has been identified as one of the most dangerous stretches of road in Douglas County. And there's, you add on to that some inexperienced drivers in the area, and some other problems of being around campus, and it makes for a dangerous situation where there's been a long history of documented accidents. So that is the problem with the 4-lane configuration. Now, the proposed solution with the 3-lane configuration, it can feel like congestion, but generally traffic flows, you're just in a single file line. And you're going the speed of the car in front of you, who's going the speed of the car in front of it, all the way down the line. So you eliminate aggressive changing of lanes while maintaining the capacity, because there's a place for cars turning left to get over. So a 3-lane configuration has a very similar capacity to the current 4-lane configuration, with a few caveats. So those caveats are mainly at the intersections, right? So right now, if you're driving eastbound on 9th Street and you pull up to Mississippi and there's 10 cars waiting at the stoplight, right? 5 in each lane, and then the light turns green, and let's say it takes 20 seconds, or not, let's say it takes 10 seconds for those 10 cars, 5 in each lane, to start moving, right? If you put those cars in one lane and now they're single file, 10 cars in one lane, it's going to take twice as long for those 10 cars to get moving. So the actual capacity of the road is similar, the capacity of the intersections are reduced. So JEO did a traffic study. We also had Olson, who has been doing different traffic studies and modeling for the city for the last few years, take a second look at it. And the consensus is the level of service can be maintained with the 3-lane configuration with several notes. So one is we absolutely have to maintain the right turn lane from 9th Street to Tennessee. We need to implement permissive protected left turns. So right now permissive is turn left on a green ball or flashing yellow arrow. That's what's at 9th and Tennessee now. Protected would be you get a green arrow and so many cars turn left, and then later there's a flashing arrow. That's protected permissive. And then we need to install vehicle detection in all these intersections. So right now, 9th and Tennessee, 9th and Kentucky is just hard timed, and it's just running the same time over and over again. If we install vehicle detection, then we can manage the traffic flow a lot better and make the intersections work as we need to. I would also say part of that is running a longer cycle length. So right now, for most of the time on 9th Street, we're running a 60-second cycle length, meaning from, if you're driving in a certain direction, yellow light to a yellow light is 60 seconds. That makes really short windows for each direction. Most arterial streets in Lawrence are running around 120-second cycle, so we would need a longer cycle length to get that long single file lane moving and then keep it moving. Some other things of note are the parking on the north side. So there was 10, 15 years ago a similar reconfiguration where we removed the parking on the south side and added bike lanes. As part of that discussion, it was told all the property owners that we would keep the parking on the north side in front of those businesses. And for me personally, that was I didn't want the city to go back on that. I thought it was really important that 10 years or 15 years ago, we told them that parking would stay and not to eliminate it now. So we worked through several different design alternatives, and really that was an important factor of meeting with the different stakeholders of keeping that parking, trying to keep at least the same amount of spots available. I've just said a lot of words. I think I'm out for a second. I guess the other thing, I just kind of want to talk about the overall schedule of the Jayhawk Watershed project. So we're trying to bid the project this fall, award it the first meeting of January. The project itself is just funded with stormwater money. So at that meeting in January, there'll be money coming from the street, water, and sanitary sewer maintenance fund to fund those improvements. There'll also be money from the traffic signal maintenance program, the traffic signal maintenance program and the bike and ped program to fund each part that's not part of the stormwater. The goal would be to start construction in March of next year, and that would start at 8th and Tennessee, right on the west side of the pool. That would involve a full closure of Tennessee for several months. The goal would there be to be done with that work on the west side of the pool by end of May, and hopefully get away from the pool for the summer swimmers. We'd be working up 8th Street and up the 800 block of Louisiana for most of 25, not getting into 9th Street until football is completed towards the end of 25, let's say beginning of December 25. And then there's several different phases of work that we're still working the details through on different orders of such, and we're meeting with KU in 2 weeks to see what impacts they might have. But basically 9th Street would be under construction for most of 26, with the goal to get 9th Street put back together and open for traffic by the fall of when students get back, and then we're in football 2026. I guess I'll just stop there and see if there's any questions, and see if we really want to get in the weeds on the proposed lane configuration.
Any questions?
I have a few questions, some of which you answered, but I think they're worth repeating for the folks watching in particular. I think one of the amazing things you did say, we're basically going to dig a 23-foot deep trench down Indiana and 9th Street and lay a pipe.
Yeah, I think I kind of stuttered when I said it, but it's about 20 foot deep.
20 feet.
There's 9th Street is closer to 18, but yeah, it's a big hole for sure.
And I know during the project, you're going to keep 9th Street open in various capacities. Will there be a time that 9th Street's completely closed?
Yes.
Do we know yet?
Yes, I think there will be. So basically there is 4 phases of work scheduled in 9th Street. The first one is installing the main tunnel between Louisiana and Mississippi, and that is right on the north side of 9th Street in front of what was Mama Tamale's Joe's Bakery over to the Red Pepper. And then there's also a sanitary interceptor that's out in the middle of 9th Street, right to the south of the new storm tunnel. So during that phase, I would say the north 2/3 of 9th Street will be closed, and we'll only be able to keep 1 lane of traffic eastbound all the way on the south side of 9th Street. The following phase would be in that same area, but switch to the south side of the street. So there's a bank, and then Bowerstock Capital's in a house and a chiropractic clinic and Jayhawk Food Mart on that side of the street. So we would be connecting smaller sewers from the south side, because everything kind of is flowing south to north. So we'd be connecting the smaller sewers on the south side of 9th Street to the new larger sewers just installed. So during that phase, we would have 2 lanes of traffic open, 1 lane in each direction, but pushed all the way to the north side in what is now the parking lane, and then 1 traffic lane. There's a third phase, which is probably the most, or pretty impactful, and it's basically closing the intersection of 9th and Mississippi in all 4 directions. Yeah, no big deal. So, I mean, we're replacing storm sewer in 9th and Mississippi and some sanitary sewer, 2 of the traffic signal poles, and redoing all the conduit for that traffic signal, and some variety of other safety improvements there. And that area is so tight, there's really no way to get that done and keep traffic open on 9th Street or Mississippi. So that, but the interesting thing with that phase of work is it basically could be done anytime between March of 25 and the end of the project. It's kind of independent of when the other portions of the tunnel are installed, meaning we could do the storm sewer work over there and then tie it into the old tunnel. So that is one of the main things I want to talk to KU about in 2 weeks, of when is the least worst time in terms of their project plans to close 9th and Mississippi, and then, whatever large deliveries are going to the Gateway project, what's another route for that? Normally we would do that in the summer, if it was a standalone project, but I'm not 100% sure that'd be the best time to do it if they are gearing up for opening the stadium or gearing up for a phase 2 project or whatever. The fourth phase of 9th Street would be basically a simple mill and overlay between Illinois and Vermont, with a variety of other sidewalk and other improvements that traffic would be open for.
So you mentioned this, I mean, obviously, most of the work on 9th Street, or the work on 9th Street will be after the football season in 25 and before the 26 season starts.
Yes. That 9th and Mississippi phase, we might try and do that in 25, if that works better with other stakeholders. But either way, I grew up right off 9th Street, and it's in no one's interest to have heavy utility construction on 9th Street during football season, regardless of the regardless of the attendance of football games. It's still just, we got to have 9th Street open. So either 25 or 26, we're going to do everything we can to have 9th Street open during football season.
And we'll probably get into the questions related to the lane reconfiguration, but when we did the traffic study, is Mississippi considered the main path? I mean, when we're doing the traffic study, the main path to get to the hotel and the...
Yes.
Okay. I know there's some talk about putting a parking garage kind of up the hill behind J.L. Pearson, which might make Indiana a better way to get there. Is there any discussion about Indiana to get to that parking garage, as opposed to maybe Indiana's not the right street?
I guess, Indiana goes up from 9th Street to Oriad.
Okay.
I guess I would just say I believe my recollection of the traffic study from KU showed the increased volume on Mississippi. My recollection is that they were looking at a parking garage kind of where the practice fields were, or where the practice fields are, the outdoor practice fields just north of the Art Museum.
That's one of the places, but those...
Yeah, I guess I would say there's a lot of discussions that KU's having that don't involve me.
Okay.
So,
understood. Back on, when we're doing the start of the project in front of the restaurants in some of those areas, will the sidewalks still be open? Will people be able to get to the front of those businesses?
Yes. So right now, I believe there's about 8 feet of sidewalk between the flower shop and the Fork and Tumbler and the curb. We're marking our edge of construction 2 feet back from the curb, with the goal, with the plan to maintain 6 feet of sidewalk in front of those businesses. Now, the old storm tunnel is basically running right underneath that sidewalk, and then it turns and runs right under Fork and Tumbler. So there's some risk that certain deviations from the plan might be required, right? But I guess the plan to fill the old storm tunnel is to dig it up in 9th Street, dig it up downstream and build a wall and then pump material into it. Both right there under Fork and Tumbler, and then farther north as it goes through the neighborhood. So, I mean, the plan is to abandon the storm tunnel in place and dig it up in the right-of-way. There's just, I guess I just want it to be clear that there's some risks involved, and, you know, there might be some known unknowns, and we might have to change course at certain points. But
This old line runs under Folk and Tumbler, under a bunch of houses,
Right.
under several of our streets. We're just
Right.
going to fill that and then replace it with a new one down Indiana.
down 8th Street and then
8th.
Louisiana to 9th Street. Yeah, so basically the old storm sewer was just built in place in the ravine. Like there was a ravine that went from KU Memorial Stadium through the train park to the river. So they just kind of put a pipe inside that and buried that, and then the neighborhood built around it. There's places where you can see in people's basements where the tunnel's going on one side, and it would be, yeah, so it's a difficult situation, but the plan is to dig it up in the right of way, build a wall on the downstream side at certain places, go to the upstream side and pump it full of material, and then verify that it's filled up.
Last question, would, at least before we get to the design of this, is what's the plan for bicycle traffic when we have 9th Street torn up and for at least a year, right? We're not going to, I mean, it might be one lane, might be 2 lanes, but I assume we won't have any bicycle traffic down 9th for all of 2026.
There won't be a dedicated bike lane down 9th Street for most of 26. So I think typical in construction zones, speeds are reduced, unfortunately, and then the side benefit of that is that many bicycles then just kind of go the speed of the car in the travel lane. But we've generally talked about it's probably worthwhile to set up a marked bike detour on each side of the project on 9th Street, detouring bike traffic to 8th Street. You can't really detour them to 10th Street because there's a large hill on 10th Street at like Louisiana and Indiana. We've gone back and forth on pedestrian traffic because on one hand, you know, you want people still walking down 9th Street and patronizing the businesses, but it will be difficult in spots to make sure that there is a safe pedestrian pathway on one side of 9th or the other. So we're kind of going back and forth on that. I guess I would say at a high level, we're at 90% design, which means we have a general idea where all the infrastructure is going, and now we're working through a lot of details on the traffic control and staging and kind of the miscellaneous issues around the project. So the traffic control plans are still in flux, but I do think it's in everybody's interest to just go ahead and set up a bike detour down 8th.
Quick comment, then I'll let other people ask about the project. I would say that I know early in the 23rd Street project, we had lots of complaints from, you know, from businesses. It seems like when we did Wakarusa and 6th Street, we've done a better job, it seems, of communicating and talking through that, getting a lot less complaints than we did on 23rd Street. So whatever we did different, I hope we do the same on 9th Street, because that's going to be a difficult time for some of those businesses. It's a comment. So.
Yeah.
Mayor, Commissioner Larson has had her hand up for a bit.
Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, actually, I just have one question, Brad. Thanks for all those kind of answered some of the stuff I was looking at. On the bike lanes, when I'm looking at the maps, you're showing some protective barriers. Are those concrete, just paint, or they're sharrows, or what are they?
So the marketing name for them is zebras, which is basically, and I believe there's a link in the commission memo to it's cut sheet or whatever. But it's basically, I would describe it as a rubber semicircle that's bolted to the pavement. And then there would be alternating traffic posts that stick up from that, not every other one, but in places, so then we can see those during snow removal and know where those are. We worked with the operations group on what we would need to clean the street and on snow removal. So there's a minimum 7.5 foot distance between those zebras and the face of curb to allow for snow removal. Now, the thing about those zebras is there's a lot of cross streets and alleys and driveways, and so that protective zebra pattern stops whenever the bike lane's crossing those to allow for cross traffic. And then there's 2 bus stops on each side of the street, 2 eastbound and 2 westbound, that we worked with transit on how much room they would need to get the bus over to the curb and service those bus stops. So the zebra pattern also stops at the 4 transit bus stops.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Vice Mayor?
Can you talk a little bit about the vehicle detection system and the light changes that are anticipated already as a part of this program? From what you've mentioned, it sounds like a lot of these improvements are coming out of other funds. We're here to discuss some of the amenities on the surface, but if I understand correctly, all of the signalization's already included in another budget somewhere?
Yeah, so I guess since included in this commission action is a CIP amendment, so I'm going to start with that one. So that $139,000, I believe, is coming from, I believe it's just called like the green paint bicycle project. So that was funded in '24, and we got a really competitive bid, had that money left over. So we're moving that to the Jayhawk Watershed project to complete the green paint markings for these bike lanes. There's also, we worked with the MMTC on 2 separate meetings for other safety improvements besides the zebras and the buffered bike lanes. We're going to add a pedestrian beacon at Louisiana Street, which is the halfway mark between Mississippi and Tennessee. So that pedestrian beacon and some other safety improvements on 9th Street will be funded from the 2025 Bike Ped Fund, I'm going to call it. Probably has a more official term. And then street maintenance, sanitary sewer, water main will all fund, and traffic signal will all fund their respective types of infrastructure, along with the budgeted stormwater project that's actually in the CIP for the Jayhawk Watershed. So there's kind of a mishmash of funding to get all these different parts.
Of funds, yes. It looked like that. And so what I'm trying to understand is, if we didn't change any of the current configurations of the roadway and just put in these other improvements that you described in your presentation and then also just now, that wouldn't require any change to the CIP or any additional funding, is that correct?
If we were to not approve the road diet, are you saying what?
We didn't put it on a road diet, if we just reconfigured as is with the new signalization you described, putting in the other safety improvements, the painting of the lanes.
Yes, I would say the cost difference would be marginal. Okay. Right? I mean, we're talking 1-2% of the overall project. I think the main cost difference would be not having the zebras like Commissioner Larson was talking about, which I believe those in particular are in the maybe $20,000 range or something. But, the storm sewer and all those other infrastructure types are in the millions of dollars. And then you're talking like the hybrid beacon and some of the other traffic signal replacements are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The difference in how you paint the street is going to be marginal. Sure. And, the maybe 20,000 or 30,000 less without the zebras. So I wouldn't say it's so much of a budget issue to do the lane configuration or not, reconfiguration or not.
Sure.
It's, to me, it's a safety issue, and it's also just the right time to do it with this other large project. That answer your question?
Sure. And then when you talked about the way the intersections function, specifically their efficiencies, when you made those assumptions regarding, or when those assumptions were made regarding existing functionality and road diet functionality, were the changes in the signalization already included in that formula, including some of the, smart systems for detecting traffic backups, et cetera?
So, I know with JO's study, no.
Okay.
Olson looked at it, and, they're mainly looking at capacity of the roadway, but specifically it's like queuing length and delay, but specifically the Olson study said, if you do this, we recommend that you do these other things. Keep the right turn lane, add vehicle detection, add the permissive protected left turns. I guess another wrinkle to that is ideally we would like to have fiber connected to all these signals on 9th Street, so then those would connect directly to the traffic control center, and that opens up a whole gateway of functionality improvements, and like implementing special event plans, controlling the signal in real time, and troubleshooting in real time. Right now, there's no fiber on 9th Street. There's fiber on 6th Street. But with this project, we plan on installing fiber conduit from 9th in Illinois to 9th in Kentucky, with the hope of, at some other point, we're getting fiber from 6th in Kentucky to 9th in Kentucky. And then we would get those lights connected to fiber with the fire department and the library, and maybe the pool, and then get fiber up 9th Street to those signals, and then be able to control the whole thing much better. That wouldn't really be part of this project, but I guess it's just something that needs to happen in the next few years to optimize the signals. That kind of needs to happen regardless of the lane configuration, if it's 4-lane or 3-lane though.
Okay, so signal optimization is not necessarily going to be a part of this from a fiber or an ITS perspective, but you are putting in smarter signals with the different lights regardless of what we do relative to the size of this road, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
All those things are going to change, and you're going to put the conduit in so that we could hook it up to ITS if we wanted to, if there's a line in the future.
Yes.
Okay, so then to this, so with signalization improvements alone and the current existing plan with the current odd in and out configuration, do we have traffic study extrapolation on that, or was that not taken into consideration? I couldn't quite figure out from the data if that was.
Yeah, so Kurt, can you pull up the commission memo and scroll down, or maybe I can control it and scroll down to where the Olson report is. But my understanding of the traffic studies themselves, they aren't taking account for the timing of the signals, right? And they aren't taking account for if there's vehicle detection or PED people pushing the button. It's mainly looking at, thank you, Kurt, looking at the capacity of the roadway. And I think what I would describe as kind of the conclusion here is this is the rating of the existing geometry, A, B, and that's generally good. This is with the proposed lane reconfiguration, and you see this level of service E there for Tennessee Street. And it would come up to a level of service C if the alternate geometry is included, which is the right lane at Tennessee and some of those other improvements Yeah. So there's another similar table, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm a sewer guy, so we might,
Okay.
Stephen might have to, even though he didn't do this report, summarize it, but basically, and this is all 2040 traffic volumes with the full build out of KU. So basically, to maintain close to the level of service we have now, the biggest thing is that right turn lane at Tennessee.
Got to keep it.
Yeah. But the speeds will be reduced, with the 3-lane configuration, but the level of service is still very close.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple questions. More. When you're talking about the signalization and I guess I'll preface this by I drive 9th Street every day, twice a day at least.
You're our quality control on
Yes.
because we don't have fiber on it.
And one of the biggest backups actually is between Vermont and Tennessee, and then again between Massachusetts and Vermont. And those signals are much shorter than the Tennessee and Kentucky one, which leads to the backup, especially from 2 lanes to 1. Either of those seems to have a flow of traffic through there. We need to change the timing of those 2 as well.
Well, I guess, luckily I'm a sewer guy and I've been dabbling with the traffic signals for years. I guess I would say, specific to all the traffic signals on 9th Street, or not 9th Street, on Massachusetts Street, we, besides 6th Street and 19th Street, we aren't really trying to get good traffic flow through there where you aren't stopping, right? It's not, Massachusetts Street is kind of like a parking lot per se at a mall, right? So you don't want everybody catching the lights through there going 30.
Yes.
So we've purposely not coordinated the signals at 9th and Mass with 9th and Vermont, where they just kind of are running on their own. It's just, ideally, people would go to 6th Street and not, funnel all the through traffic through the business district. 9th and Vermont is coordinated with Tennessee and Kentucky, and I believe it's on a 60-second cycle also. But it's very short.
Yeah.
And there's very short queue lengths there, and very limited vehicle storage. But I think once all the detection is up and the signal improvements are made, then we would need to do, separate from the infrastructure project, a re-coordination of 9th Street on the traffic signals. And things like northbound Kentucky turning left on 9th Street is a very heavy movement, right?
Yes.
And generally, or all the time, 9th Street turns green at the same time for Tennessee and Kentucky. So everyone turning left from Kentucky onto Tennessee, or onto 9th Street, gets a red light, right? And there's only so much space to store all those vehicles, right? If the cycle length is longer, then you get some, and you have vehicle detection, then you have some way more opportunity to coordinate it differently, where maybe you turn left onto 9th Street and you're getting the green light, so you aren't queuing back into Kentucky Street and blocking traffic in different directions. So it's the longer cycle length allows for a lot of different, and people smarter than me to model it and figure it out, but allows to get the same traffic flow through there, but you're waiting longer for your turn, right? So you might be waiting 50 seconds where you're used to waiting 30 seconds to get the green light, but then once your light turned green, it stays longer and it funnels all the traffic out funnels all the traffic out and gives it time to fully clear before it turns red. But I know someone has to think that through
Yes.
hopefully the city keeps paying me and I'll be here to do that.
I definitely need to include 9th and Vermont in that.
Yeah.
I was surprised that there wasn't a right-hand turn lane onto Mississippi Street. I mean, in the morning, there's a lot of people heading that way, in particular now during construction, but it's always been that. And especially with the hotel and otherwise, it just didn't, you're saying the study didn't show a right-hand turn lane at Mississippi?
It did not. Do you have any recollection of that, Stephen?
Just looking at the level of service results we got, it didn't pop up as a concern.
Yeah, so I guess just
Okay.
at a high level, it didn't warrant that. I also think right there, I don't know if there's as much room right there.
Okay.
But-
Well, there is not a lot of room there, but I was, it drops right now, that's where it opens up into full lane, so you have a de facto turn lane.
Right.
And a turn lane going straight. And I don't know if John needs to come up, because I'm going to ask a few more traffic questions, so you might need to come up to the microphone. And I don't know how your traffic study handles Burrito King, because Burrito King has amazing traffic. Burrito King backs up traffic in both directions. But I assume it doesn't really account for Burrito King. But I do have a question about I know the safety of through traffic, but I see a lot of, with the current stretch of three lanes, in some of those, minor streets, you actually have two people trying to turn at this, trying to get into the third lane, one wanting to go north, one wanting to go south. It seems like in that main business district, if we're at 3 lanes and someone wants to go to these stores, how do we control that? That middle turn lane seems like a concern to me, with people turning into, someone wants to turn into, one of the restaurants and someone else is trying to turn into the other restaurant. I'm concerned about that. Now, people, I think you said aggressively accelerate around them, but there's a lot of that. I guess I'm concerned, and what does the studies just say about that middle turn lane?
Well, I mean, the studies, I haven't read the studies, but I think history has told us that a 3-lane section works. Traditionally, we built arterials 4 lanes, then occasionally would build out to add a left turn lane at major intersections, but those 4-lane sections just really didn't work. You build them 3 lanes or 5 lanes, and that 2-way left turn lane, it's been proven to work over time. I'm sure when that was introduced 30, 40, 50 years ago, whenever it was, probably had that exact same concern. But it hasn't borne out in the data.
So even in a commercial district, those are pretty, obviously I was around when they went from 4 to 3 lanes where it is now in the residential area, and I think that does work pretty well. But I guess I'm much more concerned when you have commercial properties on either side that have a lot more traffic. But you're saying 3 lanes work in a
3 lanes will
section?
work, plus speed limits are 30, so traffic reacts to each other. And I'm certainly comfortable as a traffic engineer recommending that.
Okay. One of the proposals is to have the bike lane along the curb, even when we have parking, and then putting parking like on the north side, so you'd have drive lane parking, and then as opposed to as exists to now with parking along the curb and the bike lane, between traffic and the parking. Is that, I've seen that in a few places like in Boston, but often there's a curb there between. Is that a pretty common layout to have the bike goes between the parked car and the curb?
I forgot to introduce myself. Stephen Buckley with JEO. I wouldn't say it's common, but it's becoming more common. And NACTO, it's one of the recommendations or an option from NACTO, which is kind of a leader on bike facilities in urban areas. So I wouldn't say it's common, but it's becoming more common. to run that bike lane between the curb and the parking. The parking adds another level of protection from through traffic. And so, yeah.
Okay. And did I hear correctly, between the curb and where the zebra is, it's going to be 7.5 feet, so those are going to be pretty wide bike lanes?
Yes, I can't recall. I think the bike lanes are either 5 or 6 feet wide, but then you have the buffer, the protected buffer, which is marked out, and then where possible we have the zebras. So we wanted to make sure we maintain 7.5 feet from face of zebra to face of curb. But the bike lane won't be marked as 7.5 feet wide. It'll be a little narrower than that.
I think those are all my questions for the moment.
So thanks, Stephen, for your input. I'm curious a couple things about the vehicle storage specifically. We're reducing the amount of vehicle storage we have in this corridor significantly and enhancing that with these longer lights. But what is, from your evaluation and when you're looking at this, as a throughway or as a inlet to downtown or as an outlet to downtown, as a vein or an artery or the heart of our community, I guess what I'm trying to understand is this roadway in itself is unique because of how convoluted it is over a very short stretch, and it's unique because it receives a lot of traffic from the surrounding neighborhoods, more so than most residential streets, I would say, during high volume traffic periods. And so I wonder, is there any reason why we should change this when we realize that we're receiving many cars at certain periods of the time and reducing the ability to manage those cars, and they're going to flow and stay in these neighborhoods as people come and go from the neighborhoods when you reduce the vehicle storage on 9th Street. And so what I'm worried about is unintended consequences more than anything else, that we're looking at this as more of a throughway than it really is a road into a parking lot, which is downtown Mass Street, which is a parking lot, and basically vehicle behaves as such. So I can see why you want to slow down traffic because we're heading to a parking lot, and we want to speed up traffic as we're leaving so we can get it out of the area for game days and during school activities. But I'm worried about the unintended consequences of removing storage for vehicles when we have large quantities of car coming and going here at unusual times, unlike other parts of our community.
When you say storage, you mean storage on 9th or storage on the side streets waiting to get on? Or
Both.
Both, okay.
Because we've got parking on, we've got cars taking up both sides of the parking on the side streets. You've got, there's some way to receive inflow, and so I'm wondering what the downstream ramifications are going to be from that.
The analysis tells us it'll work. In that, most of the side streets don't carry a lot of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi, I think Mississippi carries close to 1,000 vehicles a day, at least the North Leg does.
Mm-hmm.
When we did the capacity analysis, we looked specifically at 9th and Mississippi. Because really the question was, taking a step back, going back to what Nick was talking about, we're rebuilding this entire road, we're going to overlay this entire road, we're going to have to remark this entire road. What can we do to improve the operation of this road, not just for vehicles, but for peds and bikes? And so the question was, would a road diet work? That was the first thing we looked at. Yes, for the segment, the road diet would work. What about the critical intersections? Well, we looked at 9th and Mississippi and determined it would work. I mean, for example, in 2040, using projected traffic volumes during the peak period, northbound Mississippi, the longest queue was 83 feet. So I'm not too worried about queues. By queue, I mean traffic backing up, the length of vehicles backing up. I'm not too worried about traffic backing up on the side streets. I think with the improvements to the, one thing I do want to say is when we analyzed this, when we looked at 9th and Mississippi from a capacity analysis, we basically assumed worst case, which is the existing signal timings that are out there now. When they go in and modernize these signals and improve the detection and improve the timing, increase the cycle length, doesn't mean the cycle length is going to be maximum every cycle, but it's going to be a lot more flexibility, and it'll really improve the overall the flow of the corridor. And then, having signals at, there's one at Emory, is that right? Yeah, Emory and Mississippi and Tennessee. Ideally, when we do get into the weeds and start, looking at how those should be timed, we'll time them to create gaps in the flow of traffic on Mississippi to allow folks from the side streets to access Mississippi. So, a lot of that stuff will be looked at when we're doing the signal timings, but we know based on the numbers and based on just the experience of other communities, a road diet will work on this section. And I'm confident that when we go to look, whoever looks at the signal timings and gets those optimized, it'll work not only for 9th Street, but for the side streets as well.
So it'll work. Is it better than the existing, meaning for vehicles only, and not talking about ped and bike safety, which I care about tremendously? I ride down that corridor all the time, so I know it well, but I'm talking about cars. Is this actually going to improve the functionality of that area for vehicle transport? By reducing lane widths, putting in 3 lanes?
It kind of depends what your measure of improvement is. In terms of safety, much safer. In terms of delay, during the peak, you might see an increased delay for traffic during that peak period. And one thing, and we talked about that in the beginning, it's like we really wanted to try to balance, there's a give and take when you're doing a design like this, and some of the take was, from traffic to give more protection to bicycles. We have the bike lanes out there now, but we wanted to improve protection of bikes along this corridor. And so those were kind of some of the gives and takes. During the peak period, delay might be slightly longer than it is today, but certainly not unreasonably longer. And then the benefit is we get that extra space for protected bike lanes, and also able to maintaining the parking as well, and access to bus stops. There's so many things to consider along here. Access to bus stops and.
Okay, thank you.
I guess just one other thing I'd like to add that's similar to that. I mean, I hear it from my wife and my friends and then everybody, got to keep traffic moving. So I'm all for smooth traffic flow. But what's unique about this section of 9th Street is how rideable in terms of a bicycle it should be, right? It's relatively flat. Yeah, there's a lot of residential area there, very close to downtown and stores. And why is that? Because it was built before cars, right? That area was developed before cars, where, there's now miles between houses and Walmart, where that area is compacted where it should be rideable. And the fact that it's flat, it could be, just a really nice place to ride your bike if it is safer. And I know the general consensus among, the bike advocates is if you build it and you make it safe, then the bikes will come. And I think this is a particular place where biking just makes sense, right? You have a lot of students. When I was in college, I didn't have a car. I rode my bike everywhere. I just think there's some students in that area that ride their bike, and it's just a nice bike ride from that area of town to downtown. And I think if we make it safe, there'll be a lot more bikers on that. But still, cars will be the primary mode of transportation, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
Any additional questions?
Mostly comments, but Nick, I do have a quick question because you kind of touched on it briefly. In regards to the Gateway project, and I feel like this is a deja vu because I think we talked about this last time. We can't necessarily delay this aspect of the project because I know the upper and lower parts are not currently funded. What impacts are the Gateway project, or are there, what are the impacts, if there are any, on the Gateway project on getting this aspect of getting the middle
Well, in terms of
done or started?
just the major types of infrastructure. You know, there's a football stadium there now that uses a lot of water and makes a lot of wastewater. So the flow and the infrastructure there doesn't really change much. The current project is very similar in terms of impervious area, so the ongoing project won't change the runoff into the storm sewer. Potential phase 2 development of that east side where there's now grass parking lot, they would need to detain any increased runoff. So I would say between sanitary water and stormwater, there would be little impact to developing fully developing the Gateway project. The main impact is going to be for traffic, and I would say not 6 days a year at football games, but the other 360 for having activities and a hotel there and whatever goes on at the convention center. So the traffic portion of the Gateway project is really what I feel like impacts this project the most, and that's why we tried to take a very conservative approach and assume a full build out of that Gateway project. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, because I did have an initial thought about when the intersection has to go down, navigating, because I know that there is student, or at least there's a red or yellow parking lot that's on the opposite side, the south side of the parking garage, and just navigating that space. But I was just thinking they can go down Indiana, or you can go down Main, depending on where we're at and what phase we're at in the project on that. So we don't necessarily, folks wouldn't be terribly impacted by that, but the ongoing of what KU decides to do with that section, how would that impact your work is the biggest concern for me.
What I'm most concerned about with that phase of construction that would close Mississippi Street is timing that with whatever is going on at the stadium, where one, there's no football, but two, there's not 1,000 concrete trucks or whatever going there every day. Because we don't want those going up any of the residential streets or Main Street. But we got to work that out with KU and try to time that phase as best we can to limit disruption.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Commissioner Larson?
No, I'm good.
Okay. With that, thank you all. With that, I'll open it up to public comment.
Hello, I'm Michael Allman with Sustainability Action Network. Our organization not only promotes electric vehicles, but also bicycle transportation, whether electric or manual. Every community, when it comes to multimodal transportation, goes through a maturation process, generally starting with something like the green bike route signs or sharrows painted on the street. Then it matures to the level of the white striped bicycle lane by the curb. Ultimately, the next step would be protected bicycle lanes, separated bicycle lanes, each time increasing the level of safety for the bicyclists. And I want to point out that in this discussion, I would encourage you to look at the level of service for bicyclists as well as motor vehicles. This is a multimodal transportation project, and I really have to say that Mr. Hoyt and JEO and Olson Associates have done a great job, I think, in designing the reconfiguration, the multimodal reconfiguration of 9th Street, and we support it. It's been a long time coming. Mr. Hoyt said it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago that the initial promise for the parking on the north side was actually 20 years ago, approximately 20. But even before that, at 9th and Mississippi in 1998, a bicyclist was killed by a dump truck. That's really what started the whole process. 9th Street is one of the most dangerous corridors for bicyclists. It has the highest accident rate, motor vehicle, bicycle, anywhere in the city. That, in my estimation, is why we want to do this. There are, a number of particulars that I could point to in the design, but I think I'd rather talk at this point, since I don't have a whole lot of time left, of community engagement. We started, like I said, initially like 20 years ago, but about 2 years ago, when this project was starting to be discussed, we engaged with the community all along 9th Street, our organization. We believe in early engagement, as Commissioner Finkeldye would attest. We sent out information about this kind of configuration, and this material is in your packet from the Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting in August. We talked to pretty much all the property owners.
Michael, that's
67%.
Michael, that's time.
Supported it.
I'm going to have to ask you to leave if you don't continue.
So I encourage you.
Michael, please step away.
Thank you, Mayor Littlejohn.
I wasn't going to talk, but I approve of the 9th Street change, and I really wish you'd quit practicing so much content discrimination in here. You had the last guy arrested that wouldn't shut up.
Hi, Patrick Ross, 66049. I just want to quickly add on to what Michael was saying, that I also agree in protected bike lanes. The other day, I almost got hit by a car that was rolling through a stop sign and didn't see me in the intersection, so any chance to get divided barriers between cars and bikes would increase more people in riding bikes in the city and make us bike riders feel more safe, so thank you.
Hi, this is Chris Flowers. I haven't checked out the final version of this, but I remember the multimodal transportation meeting when they were talking about it, and it seemed okay. And like I've talked against different bike projects in the past, but this one seemed like one of the better. Like one of the more thought out ones, and so if you are going to do a bike project, I think this would be one of the better choices from some of the others I've seen. Thank you.
Okay, Sherry, any on Zoom?
Yep, we have quite a few, Mayor. Cynthia Eubanks.
Good evening. I'm Cynthia Eubanks with 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church. We're at 847 Ohio, and our offices are at 901 Tennessee. I am the office administrator. I'm coming to you tonight because we only maybe 2 months ago learned of this project. And even though we think it's a wonderful project for the 9th Street corridor, we have some serious concerns about the parking on 9th Street adjacent to our church, 9th and Ohio. We currently are able to park 4, maybe 5 cars on the curb right next to the church, and many of the people who use that location are older and have difficulty with mobility. And so our main concern is if these parking spaces are going to be adjacent to oncoming traffic, that it will not be very safe for our members who are parking there. We have limited parking in our area. So the street parking is helpful, and it is very important for us to be sure that our elder population, and we do have a lot of members and participants in our church who are 50 and older, and a nice percentage of those people are in either wheelchairs or have to use walkers or just have difficulty with mobility. So I am hoping that the commission will ask the design team to reconsider our parking at least right next to our church, because the plan as it stands is not very safe for our members. Again, we just learned of this, otherwise we would have been coming to you and letting this be known some time ago. Thank you, commissioners.
Did you want to just complete these and then finish what's in the room?
What's that?
Did you want to keep going on Zoom? I noticed a few more folks we missed in the room.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll go ahead and go to the room real quick then. Go ahead and finish it up before we go back to Zoom. Go ahead.
Hi, I was too slow in getting up. My name is Kristen Eldridge, and I own a business in Lawrence. It is not on the 9th Street corridor. However, I do know what it's like to have your whole livelihood wrapped up in your business. Put your life savings in it. I read through the packet, I looked at the proposal, and I was really hoping that we would be able to learn more to explain it a little better today. It looked to me as if many of the driveways and alleyways to some of those businesses on 9th Street were blocked by a bike lane, a protected bike lane, limited access into parking, for example, in Big Mill, off of Mississippi, you could get in there, but not off of 9th. And I hope that is accurate, because that's the way I read it. Those businesses require trucks for delivery as well as traffic into their business, and to restrict that is very, very upsetting to them. I also drive on 9th Street all the time, multiple times a day, and to me, it is an artery to downtown. It is a corridor. There are times of day, though, that it is at a complete standstill. We are just at a complete standstill. Now, anybody who drives on it knows that the watershed has to be addressed because it floods all the time. And I did read also through the JEO report that they felt the proposal would handle the traffic that it currently has as far as auto traffic. However, if it were to increase, there would be significant changes that would be needed. And there's no reason to think that it would stay the same, especially with a gateway project going in, reduces connectivity to downtown. We want people to go downtown. And it definitely would hurt those businesses that rely on street traffic, people coming in and out of their business. Again, the Gateway project, we've got the World Cup in 2026, and it was hard to tell on the timeline, but where this would be in the construction of it, but that was also concerning. The World Cup, as well as the Gateway and connecting to downtown, is a really big business opportunity, and we need to be able to move people. We also need to show off our stadium.
In your time, Kristen.
Thank you. Is that all the comment in the room?
Looking like. Okay, let's go back to Zoom.
Vince Munoz.
Oh, hey, So I'm Vince Munoz. I live my zip code is 66047. I wanted to speak in favor of like all the proposal and just like the reconfiguration. I personally am a driver, but I know a lot of people who don't drive, and I think it's important that it remains safe. And also just in that particular corridor that we're talking about, that weird like 5-lane, and on either side it's already 3 lanes. I mean, I think all of us who are drivers know anecdotally, like younger drivers like to try to zip past you in that space, and it's really unsafe. So even just as a driver, I think it would make me feel a lot safer going there. One thing that I'd also like to point out, and it's sort of been talked about by Nick Hoyt and a few others, but just to put a finer point on it, people who live in those neighborhoods, if they had a protected bike lane, would probably be more likely to choose biking. You know, a huge part of why you would never bike on that street, or you would most likely avoid it, is because of how dangerous it is. You know, with fewer people driving, you have fewer cars on the road. And so there's all this talk of, you know, what happens if the traffic increases? But there's not really consideration for the fact that traffic might decrease as people are using their cars less frequently in that area. And one final thing I'd like to say is just, we're having this debate, and by pure coincidence, it happens to be a national week without driving, which is just a challenge that a few disability rights nonprofit organizations have put forward. I think that it's the last week of September every year. I'm not 100% sure on that. And I would just really strongly encourage either this year or next year for all the commissioners and potentially other like senior leaders and city staff to participate in a national week without driving. It's a challenge where, you know, you try to get around your town without driving, because almost 1/3 of Americans cannot drive due to things like age, ability, income level. And so, you know, of course, you know, I'm a driver. I appreciate that all of you are concerned about drivers and our convenience, but we also have to be concerned about other people in our community too. So I would just really encourage you all to like try yourself to use transit for a week, to walk for a week, and see, you know, how difficult or easy it is, and maybe that might inform some of these kind of conversations. So I just, again, to repeat it, I think the redesign is great. I think as a driver, it would make me feel a lot safer. It has the potential to reduce traffic. And so, yeah, so that's what I have to say.
Nick Simpson.
Hello, my name is Nick Simpson, 66044. I also wanted to speak in support of adding protected bike lanes. You know, as they say, paint is an infrastructure, and whether it is the zebra or putting a line of cars or whatever, I would definitely support having some sort of protection there, because I definitely know I have seen people drive into the bike lane, and we don't always have the greatest drivers. So, you know, I would never consider biking down 9th Street. I don't currently have a bike, but I have biked before, and that would never be a place that I would go currently. But I've walked down 9th Street, you know, to the bars, to other places, and I think it would be a really great place to have protected bikes. And it would be easier than, you know, some of these other streets that have all the brick on it. So I definitely support this plan.
Daniel England.
Hello, my name is Daniel England. I live at 66044. I support adding protected bike lanes with like actual physical infrastructure instead of just paint. Just like Nick said before me, paint is not infrastructure. It does not stop people from driving through the bike lanes, especially when you get near turning lanes. A lot of cars will end up in the bike lane. So having a physical barrier is a lot better for safety. As someone who is a pedestrian and like a transit user regularly, I think having this kind of infrastructure that's like real infrastructure and not just paint is super important. Thank you.
Julie Jones.
Did you call my name? Sorry.
Yes, Julie, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
it was spinning. Julie Jones, 66047. I still see a lot of people using the sidewalks instead of the bike lanes here in the city. So I don't understand why we continue to put down bike lanes when people are still running around on the sidewalks. The other day, in fact, I had to chase mini bikes off the sidewalks, and then apartment complex was driving their golf court on the sidewalk. So I just don't think, maybe it's in my neighbors who are avid bikers said there's no way they would do those bike lanes here in town. So maybe with the protection in this area that you guys are talking about, people will use that area, but otherwise I don't see it anywhere else in town. Thank you.
Hey, Sherry, can you hold up for a second? I know you guys are probably trying to converse, but I can kind of hear you up here. If you can keep it to a minimum, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Stephen Watts.
Thank you. With respect to protected bike lanes, oh yes, we need a lot of those, not just on 9th Street. All bike lanes need to be protected in this community. I won't ride a bicycle anymore on these streets because of the way that people behave in their cars and trucks. It's just not safe. I cannot afford to get injured and mend back to health. Not interested. So please, yes, wherever the routes go, doesn't matter. Anytime we make a bike path, it has to be protected. And I believe people are going to be using bicycles far more frequently in the future. So as we plan for the future, there's no point in putting down a white line as people cross over it. Thank you.
William Steele.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
Sorry, William Steele, 66044. I live on Avalon Road, and I ride my bike down 9th Street at least once a week. And I would probably ride more often if I didn't fear for my safety as often as I do. I literally do this like every time I go down 9th Street. And the reason for that is it's extremely unsafe to ride down 9th Street, especially along the proposed stretch of road from about Mississippi to Kentucky. People drive way too fast along that stretch of road, and it's very unsafe to ride a bicycle along there. So I think having protected bike lanes is a real game changer for cyclists in this town. I think if we put those in as proposed, you'd see people use those lanes a lot more often, and I think it would actually be beneficial to businesses as well, because people are more likely to stop and shop along those stretches of the road where there's protection. They feel more safe and comfortable along those areas. So I really think that strip along 9th Street would really benefit from a road diet, not only for safety, but also, again, for local businesses. I don't buy the argument that it's going to hurt businesses. I don't buy the argument that there's not enough parking. If you look carefully at the design and the engineering, which got a lot of input from people in the community, you're going to see that there's plenty of parking there. The traffic calming is going to benefit the community significantly. People are going to feel safer to walk there. They're going to feel safer to ride their bike down there. And they're more likely to patronize those businesses because things have slowed down. Right now, people just drive, again, they drive like crazy. We all know this. We've all driven along that stretch of road, right? There's no need for 4 lanes along that stretch of 9th Street. We can certainly do just fine with 3 lanes there, and it's going to be, I'm telling you guys, having buffered bike lanes there is going to be an absolute game changer, and it could become a model for how we develop bike infrastructure in the future in Lawrence. So again, I fully support this proposed lane reconfiguration of 9th Street.
Samuel Carter.
Good morning. Oh, sorry. Good evening, rather. My name is Samuel Carter. I live in 66046, and I generally support the improvements that are proposed. One thing to keep in mind, though, I think, is that, you know, Nick mentioned, of course, that this is one of the most dangerous corridors in the city for pedestrians and cyclists, and I think there are 2 reasons for that. One is just the road design, in which the proposal goes a long way to address, and the other is land use. You know, there are drive-through banks in the corridor. It's automobile-centric, but of course, the neighborhood south of 9th Street is one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Kansas. So I think that the project itself has many really good features, but I would encourage the commission to encourage city staff to keep an open mind about further improvements to the corridor in the near future. There are more improvements that can be made, and this project was pretty limited in scope. I think we were told in the beginning, for instance, that they wouldn't be laying down any new concrete for protected bike lanes, for instance. So just because of the project limitations, because it was kind of added on to the wastewater project, which, you know, as a further aside, it is a good idea. That's a good process, and I think city staff should be commended for seeing the opportunity there to make improvements. That being said, I wouldn't want that to foreclose the possibility for future improvements, just because this is such an important corridor. You can encourage great walkability and bikeability, but as it stands right now, it's very auto-dominated, and that probably won't change in the near future. And I think if we want to save lives and prevent severe and disabling injuries, we need to do more on this corridor and the streets adjacent to it. Thank you.
Courtney Shipley.
Thank you. I did want to kind of just comment. First of all, thank you to the good work that's been done here, and this is really a great project. I agree with the right sizing of the roads. I, like everyone else, use 9th Street considerable amount. I also patronize those businesses. I kind of object to this idea that cars equal money. Cars don't equal money. Bicyclists also spend money at those businesses. Pedestrians also spend money at those businesses. And as a person who spends money at those businesses, it's meaningful to me that they know that. So consider that. Also think, just a reminder, you can't pretend to care about sustainability if all you do is prioritize cars. Bicyclists, pedestrians, those people are helping with our sustainability issues. Those people are helping us look to the future. When you look at some of the commenters you've seen tonight, some whom I've never seen or heard from before, those are younger people who have an expectation that as taxpayers, they will be able to have safe amenities. I have never been so angry and embarrassed as the time I went to the Sprint Center and I saw that they had bike lanes protected by cars, which is exactly what they're suggesting here. The parking with the bike lane in between, that works. And that area has far worse parking issues than we will ever have. So it can work. These are well-vetted solutions that have been used around the country. They're not reinventing the wheel. Right-sizing streets is good for the taxpayer who you work for. So please consider very seriously how important this is, not just for today, but the people who are paying our taxes in the next 30 years. Thank you.
Jeffrey Hepler.
evening. Thank you all for your time, and thank you for the work on this project. I just want to second the things that folks have been saying. First of all, for protected bike lanes, a line's not enough. Even just a reflective pillar made of plastic can do a lot, and it's very cheap. I've been patronizing those businesses for over a decade, and I travel that corridor daily, and I lived in that neighborhood for 5 years. So I'm very familiar with the traffic issues in that neighborhood and along that corridor. I do support the three lanes. I think that'll even the flow and make things safer, as has been said by many. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you all.
That's all the comments, Mayor.
Okay. Bringing it back to us for further discussion. And as a reminder, we're considering providing a recommendation on lane configuration for 9th Street improvements associated with the Jayhawk Middle Reach project. Commissioner Larson?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So one area I would like for us to look close at is that corner of Mississippi and 9th for that right turn lane there. That seems to be something I think needs to be looked at because that's used quite often. And again, with the increase of potential traffic, I think it'd be important to have that there. And then also to make sure that the alleys and, all the alleys have access for businesses and even the neighbors. It seems like that's what I saw on the drawings, but we just need to make sure that happens. But I support this. I think it's a great start. We've talked about, right sizing for years, and it's really nice to see it potentially go into action here.
Maybe we can confirm with Nick or John, the drawings with the alleys and the entryways with the bike lanes, will they be open?
Yeah, the protection with the zebras would stop at every cross street, driveway, alley, or at 100 feet in each direction of the 4 bus stops. So that would not inhibit any access to any of the businesses, alleys, or cross streets. Just a side note, I'm really glad Cynthia with the 9th Street Baptist Church joined. I reached out to her a couple months ago. I saw a gap in our engagement. I want to make sure they were engaged in the process. I just want to clarify, Cynthia, right now there's a 6-foot parking lane, and with the proposed change, it would be an 8-foot parking lane. So you would still have that same room to get out of or a very similar room to get out of the vehicle without standing in the traffic lane, as currently there's a 6-foot parking lane with the bike lane next to it, where we're moving the bike lane to the curbside but having a wider parking lane. That clarifies that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Nick.
I guess just following up, for example, on Commissioner Lawson's comment, if, and maybe this goes to the timing of the project, and you mentioned it's kind of de minimis to how you paint the lines, but things like putting in a turn lane at Mississippi, is that something we need to direct tonight? Is that something that can be looked at and brought back? Issues like that?
I guess I can say we could look at it again. I think one thing we'd want to avoid is forcing a bike lane into the right turn lane, that's currently there at 9th and Tennessee now, where the bike lane just kind of dissolves and stops, and then there's a right turn lane, and then the bike lane starts again. with all the traffic study stuff happening 6 months ago, I can't remember that particular part of it, besides Steven saying, like, basically the Mississippi doesn't warrant a right turn lane. I wonder if we have on the tip of our, just like the relative traffic volume turning right on Mississippi versus turning right on Tennessee, of what we're projecting.
Southbound.
Both eastbound turning right on Mississippi compared to Tennessee. But I guess is saying we'll look at it enough for right now, because it's very tight. I know it's a tight window to get the project to bid. I know it seems like a very long time from now to build these improvements, but we're kind of under the gun, and I'm losing hair daily.
I think it's fair. We can take a look at it.
Did you hear that, Commissioner Larson? They said they can take a look at it.
Yeah, I did. That sounds good.
And
Vice Mayor?
One question does anyone know about what percentage of the existing plan is going to be protected by the zebra, like a 20%, 30% lane miles that we're talking about for the bike lane?
I know when we were working with the Multimodal Transportation Commission, it was about 40% had the zebras. We've tweaked our design in a couple spots, so it might be 42 or 38, somewhere around there. But that also didn't count the parking. So the parking, as currently planned, will have some zebras, but it'll be at a larger spacing. But so that's probably, so there's probably 40% or so that has a tight zebra configuration, and then another 40% that has or maybe a little less than that, wider zebra configuration, and then there's a pretty good percent of the corridor that has the driveways and the transit stops and the cross streets. So there's quite a bit of gaps in there. But I don't have the exact numbers on hand of what.
Okay, I was trying to figure it in my head, but that sounded about right. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nick. He might have more, but not right now, I don't think. Well, from my estimation, I do like the plan that's been presented here. I think it'll provide a higher measure of safety for those folks that are driving there and biking there and walking there. I'm happy to hear that there will be many gaps in there for the alleyways, driveways, and intersections so that people can come and go on there, as well as the engagement process. I was very pleased. It seems like we're moving ahead further and further on that from, what it was on 23rd and other projects around the city. And, even taking the initiative to reach out to Ms. Eubanks just regarding the project when we realized there have been gaps in the process. So, it's, I like the plan presented, and, I'm encouraged by it, and I look forward to hearing more information with that meeting with KU in a couple of weeks and seeing exactly, where it goes from there. So I would approve it.
Yeah, Nick, thank you for the presentation, and also from JEO. There's not too much that I'll add. I mean, I like the configuration. I use 9th Street as my alternative, especially when 6th Street was going through its reconfiguration, rehabbing 9th Street. I became very intimate with 9th Street, and some of the things that I did notice in the patterns coming down, heading eastbound, or even heading westbound into different areas between Vermont and Tennessee, and concerns I do have with seeing, it's not necessarily younger folks, it's everybody who tries to take advantage of that go around and essentially using those left lanes as essential center lanes for turning. And I think having that consistency throughout that entire corridor is going to train individuals in safe driving. I'll be interested to see the study on the right turning lane on Mississippi. I think for me, from what I've seen, I utilize it to get on campus a lot for projects and for clients, and I don't think it's as dependent. I don't think it's as heavily dependent as folks often think it is. Sometimes I even cheat and use Maine, just because of the way traffic is over there. It's not necessarily heavy, it's just conducive to what's over there with the Papa John's and the liquor store. Sometimes that's what creates the backup, and it does scare me at times when I do see individuals on bicycles and folks are not paying attention and turning, and they're trying to quickly get around because the lane stretches out because they want to not necessarily go into like the mill or something like that. They're just trying to get around to speed up through traffic. So I think maybe sometimes we see that and we think that it's a need to have that turning lane for Mississippi, when I think a lot of folks are just using it to try to speed up the flow of traffic. So, that's my opinion for what it's worth. I did hear from a lot of folks in kind of that east side corridor of 9th Street, Rhode Island, Connecticut, folks who do appreciate biking and walking in that area. And they all talked about once they get past Vermont or even Tennessee, then they hop off their bikes and walk them because of the safety piece. And so that was an interesting perspective to hear. So hopefully having that reconfiguration, like everyone has said, will open that up. So I do appreciate that. And I do like the idea of utilizing the zebras. I spent some time, I'm noticing around the plaza, there's with some of the shared space and multimodal that's happening around the plaza on Emmanuel Boulevard, they're doing the concrete, and it's a little bit raised, and I think safety-wise, I think it's great. It's doing the same thing that we're hoping to do on 9th Street. Just aesthetically, it just looks a little bit clunky, so I think you're getting the same thing with the zebra, but you have something that's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for the community. So I do like the idea of using the zebras versus a raised concrete separator. So, with a lot of things, change is difficult, but I think we're changing a corridor that's going to create safety. It's going to create, as one of the commenters said, that sustainability that we talk about. And then I look forward to seeing what this does and how this creates that value add to the 9th Street corridor. So thank you.
I was kind of confused about all this when I first started looking at it, and as a person who does ride a bike, I feel like this is an improvement on its face value. I'm a little concerned about the variety of methods by which we're protecting the bike riders in these lanes. You're going to transfer between 2 or 3 or 4 different varieties of biking, whether you're protected by vehicles, by the zebras, out in the lanes of traffic, or crossing over traffic via green lines. I mean, there's a lot of conflict points and friction here, but the way it is right now is horrible, I have to say. It really is not good for riding your bike, and it's not really aesthetically pleasing if you're walking either because of the general geometry of the road. But I feel like this isn't a lot of money to invest in what could be potentially important improvements here, but I'm a little concerned about, like I was the last time we changed the geometry on this road, about the changing movement on your bike and knowing where to be in the lane. And in over a 4 or 5 block period, you're changing into 4 different spaces. And for me, I'm okay with that, but there's a lot of people who don't ride their bikes regularly, and they'll be confused regularly by these transfers. And I think we need to do a really good job of marking it and providing user input, because this could get very confusing for people who aren't accustomed to riding. But I do like the idea of trying this with minimal investment. But I do feel like these zebras are really not enough to protect us, but it is a good jump into some form of protected bike lane, and it's kind of a laboratory for our multimodal study. So that's the only reason I'm really in favor of this, is kind of a small scale, limited cost, and it has to be done. But I'm really concerned about some of the unintended consequences, but I have to trust the engineers on some of the numbers they provided. And my own instinct is it's not going to increase traffic westbound. It may increase traffic tremendously eastbound, but I'm hoping that that's the case. But I'm seeing this as just a small spot where we can try out some of our planning philosophies and hopefully improve the functionality. But I don't want to see decreases in the functionality of these lanes. I want to make sure we do, any recommendation we make includes the right turn lane recommended so that we don't lose the efficiency of that intersection. And I don't know if I understand the right turn question onto from Mississippi. Are we talking a right turn onto Mississippi or a right turn from Mississippi heading eastbound?
Right turn onto Mississippi.
Right turn onto
Yes.
Okay, I think he was talking about something different. I don't know. So right turn heading south onto Mississippi. And you were struggling with the bike lane crossover there. Is that what you were? I want to make sure I understood that one.
The direction we received from the commission is to take a second look at traffic volumes eastbound, turning right onto Mississippi towards KU.
Got it. I thought I said eastbound turning right. I didn't hear that last part. Okay, good deal. Thank you. All right, but other than that, I think we need to keep up that, the functionality of the intersection as much as possible so that we are considering both, all modes of transportation in one bite. So that's where I'm at.
A couple things. I guess I'm a big proponent of trying out protected bike lanes. I think we need to find a place to do it, and I think 9th Street is a good place to do that. Given certainly you can't put big bike paths along here or anything else. I think this is a good place to try that. As a driver, I do walk it sometimes. I'm not a big biker, and I do agree that if it's a protected bike lane, I'm more likely maybe to bike to work than I am today. I am concerned that, for people coming from either further west, coming down from Iowa until you can get to Avalon or Emory, to encourage bikers along this path and then try to get them up that hill is a problem, a safety feature. I am concerned about the capacity and the traffic flow. I think the traffic lights are going to be, if this is going to work, the queuing on Tennessee, Kentucky, and Vermont. I understand the issue at Massachusetts, but when people joke about our traffic jams in Lawrence, it lasts about 15 minutes. But for the 15 minutes, right before 8 o'clock and right at 5 o'clock when people are leaving downtown to go home, even now with the capacity of the 4 lanes, you get queued, and obviously people back up across intersections, they block intersections. And so queuing those traffic lights will be, during those time periods in particular, will be very important to make this work. And I guess I think, I understand why we have to do this now to get it into the plans, but I do think we're going to need to be open to see how some of this works and then be willing to reconsider, painting some of the lines or moving some of it as we go along. And so overall, I'm going to probably vote against this, not mainly to make sure, to send the point that this is something we have to continue to look at and something we have to continue to study. There's a lot of people concerned about this that want to make sure it works right, and I want to give voice to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. With that, I would entertain, I think we're probably at the point where we can entertain a motion, seems like.
And yes, so do you want to give them, is the direction, do we need to phrase the direction in any way particular? Several options, but we added to one of them, so is there a motion for an option and then in addition to that?
Right. Do we include what you're asking if we include the 9th and Mississippi portion of it?
Right, because it sounded like people were wanting some input on that.
Yeah, I probably
So
would.
the direction was to give them direction.
Right.
To include those right turn lanes, and specifically the one they've already included, I think, as an option. That was a third option, plus the other one in Mississippi. But both of those lanes are causing bike traffic to cross over, basically. So, I mean, we're going to do it at one place. I'm not sure how much of a big deal it is not to do it the other, but sounds like both of them would look pretty similar if we did put a right turn lane in there.
So at least look at that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anybody want to take a stab at that?
Nick, just make sure you're getting what you need before it's completed, after the motion and the second.
So I believe what I heard is you were going to make a motion recommending the 3-lane configuration with the directive to take a second look at that eastbound right turn lane onto Mississippi, right? Is that what, or are you adding to make sure there is a separate right lane?
No, look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, to look at it.
We want to make sure it's evaluated.
Yeah, yeah.
And schematic shown, what it would look like, and
So would that be something you would be looking for on like a city manager's report, kind of follow up a little memo on what we found on that? Would that be helpful?
That would be helpful. I mean,
yeah.
that'd be helpful to you guys? Okay.
Because it's just, at this point, that would only be paint there, because from what I can tell, striping, more or less.
Well, there is some planned, what we call a modified protected intersection. So on some of the plans, it kind of looks like a pie shape and a
the
little
rounded
oval.
pie, yeah.
So that we're kind of gives some pedestrian refuge there, and that is a raised median, not a, it's designed where it can be driven over, but it's given a visual cue to not to keep vehicles out of that area. And I believe that is planned on the south side of 9th?
No, it's just on the north side.
Yeah,
Oh, that's just on the
it's
north
only on the
side.
north side.
Okay. Never mind. So I think we can take a second look at that and follow up with the city manager's report in future commission meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Were you diving in on this, Vice Mayor Deborah?
I figured the ones
Are you
that
ready
make
for it?
the recommendation should do the motion.
Okay.
Who, me?
Oh, were you diving in on this?
Well, I was just making sure that, I thought there was 3 options. 1, current changes, or current existing, 2, without the right turn lane, 3, with the right turn lane. And then this is a 4th option to add a second right turn lane onto Mississippi, correct? I mean, that's one of the.
To look at, to review it and bring it back to us.
Mhm.
That's
I'm
not
not
what
sure.
I got.
You lost me there. I think the general,
The eastbound turn lane on the Mississippi.
the general commission action is just provide a recommendation,
Yeah.
I guess, true or
So
false,
the
yea or
recommendation would
nay,
be also
on the
include that.
overall plan.
Right.
If you wanted to add something like take a second look at that right turn lane, I think that is logical. But I'm not following you on where you're seeing 3 or 4 different options.
Right.
I thought we originally had a choice of adding the right turn lane at Kentucky or not. And you recommended that we include that in the solution. Is that not
The
true?
recommended plan is
Yeah.
keeping the right turn lane eastbound at Tennessee. So that's, agreeing with the recommended plan includes that.
Okay,
So-
I want to make sure that was the case. I wasn't
So
sure.
then if you're saying, and take a second look at a right turn lane at Mississippi, so I've never phrased a,
So that's the motion.
So the
To
motion
approve the recommended or support the recommended plan and amend the
bring
CIP.
back at a later
and look
time a
at-
city
okay,
manager's
that's what we're
memo
trying to
regarding-
get to.
yeah, sorry. I've never phrased
It's
a
okay.
motion before, so.
No, it's okay.
It's just not clear in the action that's listed,
It's
so
okay.
I want to make sure we get it.
So I move that we move forward with the 3. I move that we move forward with the lane configuration for the 9th Street Improvement Project, MS 21-00030, also known as the Jayhawk Watershed Middle Reach Project, and that at a later time, that staff brings back in the city manager's memo, a study on the eastbound turn lane configuration at Mississippi.
And amend the CIP.
And amend the
CIP.
And amend the CIP accordingly.
Accordingly, yeah.
Okay.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a first and a second out there. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay.
nay.
Did you?
I did yay.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that's 4 in the affirmative, 1 opposed. All right. Did you, Nick, have you gotten everything you needed? Okay, Sherry, do you get everything you needed on that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Sellers. All right. I'll allow you guys to go ahead and leave before we jump right in.
Want to make sure we get Nick home before he loses any more hair.
Yeah. Okay, item G, commission items.
Go ahead.
I have one. The Explore Lawrence Advisory Board, we, for the last probably year and a half or so, have been reviewing the group has been looking at the bylaws and made some ongoing recommendations or some amendments to the bylaws, which constitute changes to the ordinance, and it's ordinance 9731. And so I wanted to bring to the commission the opportunity to have staff, or at least the city attorney's office, review those red line amendments to ordinance 9731 and the bylaws, and have that brought back to us for review and vote. And that's in regards to the Explore Lawrence Advisory Board.
Okay. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Looks like you got, yes. Yep. You've got.
Tony, as far as a timeline, are we thinking, is that something that we can do before December? If the changes are.
I think so. I mean, we have a draft in our office, so,
Okay.
I mean, if that's the latest version. I think we could bring it back, did you say before the end of November or before November?
I think the idea is we'd like to have them back before appointments.
We won't have it in October, I can tell you that.
That's fine. I think November would be ideal.
Yes, we won't have a substantive meeting on likely, right? Maybe the first meeting in November because of the election.
Yeah.
So we'd have 2 meetings. I think we can bring something back.
Okay. Thank you.
2 items. One, went to the ribbon cutting for the new Housing Authority second building at 23rd and Iowa, and affordable housing project for 32 seniors. And I think that's after Delmar Jackson, named after Delmar Jackson, a longtime employee of the Housing Authority. A great event, but that was one of the first ALPA projects. County used ALPA projects, but money for that, and it's the first one actually breaking ground. They're actually, I guess they're waiting for a permit, but within the next 2 weeks or so, they'll be breaking ground. But they had the groundbreaking. But along with Tony's Kresnik's project across from Maselli's, which is 50 low-income housing units already under construction. That's 80 that we should have up and running next year. And then on the agenda tonight, we approved the bonds for the project at 3100 Michigan, which is 250 affordable units that, according to the memo, plan to break ground in April with an opening a year later. So, we have lots of other projects funded. We have land and other projects, but these are the first 3 we see breaking ground, and hopefully a year from now, those all will be done, and housing folks and some of these other projects we've been working on that we have land for and others will be, in a similar position. So we're making progress. So I just wanted to just highlight that because it's an exciting day to get those projects off the ground. I did have, I know, and this is somewhat related to the code committee, that the HRC has sent a recommendation. They were going to send us a letter regarding University Place and doing a moratorium during the historic resource study that is going on. And I watched the Historic Resources Commission, so I know they took a vote on it, but I know we haven't seen that letter come to us. So I guess, I don't know where that is in the staff process, but it's somewhat related, I think, to the code committee and some of the work there. And so I think, if not, I mean, it'd be helpful, depending where it is, to see that either next week or on the October 15th commission meeting, assuming it's moving forward, which I think it is. So just bring that up. Usually those letters come to us, I don't know, on consent or something, we receive them. I don't know how that might be brought forward, but I just ask staff to look at that and at least have us consider that on or before the 15th.
Mayor,
Sure.
one more quick one. I totally blanked. I was over here. Last week, there was a National League of Cities hosted a celebration for all the municipalities that participated in the NLC CIE, which is the City Inclusive Entrepreneurship Program. It was a 5-year program, so this was the closing out, or at least the wrapping up of the bow for the 5 years. For those who remember, the city received $30,000 in grants this past year for CIE for anchor procurement and resource mapping. And so they brought as many as the municipalities who were recipients of grant dollars together to kind of do a debriefing at the Kauffman Center. A lot of information sharing about how to maintain communications about the work that's being done, creating sustainability and networking between municipalities that had some of those best practices that elevated to the top. There were several municipalities through partnerships with ESOs were able to onboard bigger organizations, or at least organizations that grew, that became service-minded, and so now they're helping many of the municipalities that participated in the program and to build sustainability opportunities for them. So had the opportunity to meet with a gentleman from Augusta that's doing some AI work around workforce growth, workforce development, and entrepreneurship, and a gentleman from New Orleans that's doing work essentially that I wouldn't say mimics, but it's kind of like a doppelganger for CORE, or Douglas County CORE here in our community. And so I connected him with Kyle Johnson. And so just a great opportunity for those entities to get together. So there is a thank you card that was presented to us, as well as a souvenir plaque that I'll share with staff so that they can put in the mayor's office. But wanted to make sure I brought that in to share, because although it does look very pretty on my coffee table, it is not my gift, it is the city's gift. So wanted to make sure I shared that.
Thank you. Anything else? Commissioner Larson? Anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Sellers. With that, I'll move us on to the city manager's report.
Thanks, Mayor. There's two items before you on the city manager's report. One is the tobacco retail licensing report that the health department asked us to share with you, and it provides the first year of their enforcement of that and makes some recommendations. So I'm passing that along. And then the other item is the future agenda items.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question on a future agenda item. I noticed on October 15th, we added supplement number 1 related to the pool project.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be a vote on the design, or is that some other project? I mean, some other, I'm not sure what that meant.
I can answer
Brandon.
that, Craig. Yeah, we're expecting to bring the final design, or not the final design, but the conceptual design and construction design contract.
Okay.
Engineering contract, sorry.
Guess I'm a little concerned about a work session on the development code, the city hall and the pool all on the same night.
Big agenda.
That is a
Dense.
big agenda.
That's a
You forgot about the shelter.
And then, update from the community shelter, not sure what that is, but I guess I just want staff to consider looking at those and seeing. I don't know that's just a lot on one night.
It is. October 8th is also pretty full.
Yes.
Very much.
And November 5th is possible, but I think we're starting to get nervous about completion of the project on the pool. So that's another 3 weeks.
And that's election night. Election night?
Yeah.
Yes. That's election night.
That's election night.
And I'm not going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that shouldn't stop you all, but
Well, okay, I don't have any answers, but I'm just saying that's good.
well, my
At least
question
think about it, I guess.
question for the 15th, the update from the Lawrence Community Shelter for the LCS. I mean, I know I've been asking for an update because of the transition that we had in leadership and the multiple addendums and funding agreements. It was a little bit difficult to make heads or tails of when reporting was coming back, updates, and I just wanted to be able, I was wanting to hear as far as updates, but also updates as far as the reporting piece. So I don't know if it was designed for us to have it during that time, and if we can't move it to later on in the month, although we start to get, whether we do it in November.
Yeah, I think the original request was before the end of October, so that's why we were trying to squeeze it on to an October meeting.
I don't remember why I said before the end of October.
Yeah, so
After the reporting, funding.
So I think our next possible date for that would be November 12th.
And we haven't really had a reporting as far with a place for everyone. If we're going to have them, if we know that we need a bigger conversation around that. I didn't know if we can park it around that, but it may not be germane to that bigger piece. So I may have to pack my lunch that day. Not a question regarding future agenda items. I wanted to go back to the TRL. When we started the process on this, the draft had language in it. In the report, there's a recommendation as far as density. And I could not remember when we discussed this ordinance, there was language in there in regards to proximity and density. And I couldn't remember why we took that language out. So I didn't know if we could if staff could, had somewhere in your notes where you can bring that back as a memo to help me at least understand why we removed that language. I do remember us discussing it. And I don't want to take any action tonight as far as anything until I know for sure what was the rationale that was provided to the commission as to why we didn't move forward with that language. Because I do have the original model language draft that was shared. I just couldn't find in my notes why we removed it. So if I can get a memo back that could at least explain that, or at least someone get something back to me as to why that language was removed from the initial draft that we didn't approve, that would be helpful to me.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, I'm not tracking the TRL.
The tobacco retail license.
Retail.
We can go back and look at the meeting conversation.
Yes, I just need to know why we didn't.
Figure that out. I don't know if it'll be next week, but we'll go back and
Election day.
What's that?
I said by election day. I don't know, if I can just get it, that'd be great.
Yeah, just a city manager's report, just refreshing the discussion on density. Okay.
Yep.
And it looks like we have a couple folks here. Would you want to go ahead and speak to the report itself and regarding to the recommendation?
Are we moving to public comment for the city manager's report in general?
We were just here for questions if you had any.
Oh, okay. You're just here for questions? Okay. All right. I would be interested in seeing that memo as well, just to kind of get a little bit more clarification on that. Anybody else?
So I think probably our planning department has some thoughts to provide with that, so I don't want to limit our response to just what we talked about a year and a half ago. So are we okay to also provide some
some direction on that and thoughts?
Because I know that they've studied it and had some conversations with the health department staff about that, so we can probably inform this inquiry a little bit better.
Okay.
And then just regarding the agenda, my understanding, and Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, is the shelter item was a request of you all and for a specific time. So is that flexible, or is this something that I'm not understanding?
I do believe I made the request.
Okay.
I'm flexible to it.
Okay.
Seeing what, that is a very dense day. And if taking that off and moving it to a meeting date in November will help to take a little bit of pressure off that day and what we need to accomplish, I'm more than happy to push that back.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were clear and not going against, the
Right.
direction to bring it back. So,
Perfect.
okay, so we can look at options. Thank
Yes,
you.
we can.
Thank you. Any questions for Jonathan, since he is here, regarding the TRL or anything like that?
I don't think so, no.
I mean, if he has thoughts that he would like to add, context that he'd like to add to it, I would be open to hearing it.
Right.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jonathan Smith, Executive Director at Lawrence Douglas County Public Health. So I think you discussed basically what we're wanting to do is we wanted to, one, give you a report. The other thing you had is a policy brief and a very strong model policy. And with the report, we just highlighted the compliance rate as of 2023. Those compliance checks are ongoing. Wanted to highlight that it was around a 20% failure rate. So we're really interested in entertaining a discussion with you all about changing the ordinance. I know that in some of the discussion that we just had that we'd be working with city staff to do that. So mainly we were just here for questions. I did have some of our community health team here if they wanted to expand on anything or if you all have any other questions, but you got the report policy. I will say it's a strong policy. Ideally, we're looking for distance requirements for proximity between schools, other retailers, potentially parks and things like that, but we're very open to having another discussion with you all about this. I'm happy to sit around for any questions y'all have.
Thank you.
And I see you have Vicky here. Vicky, I didn't know, I'm kind of using this as some liberty time. I know with the TRL, if there's some opportunity to connect it to the work that's been going on with the chip and how we can do a better job of connecting these things that are not necessarily, you can't see a visual connection to the chip and our strategic plan, but is there just what you see about that, and does what in the TRL is impacted in the chip that is also something that we tie back to our strategic plan?
Okay. Thank you. I'm Vicki Colley-Akers, Director of Policy and Planning at Lawrence Douglas County Public Health. The Community Health Improvement Plan is our strategic plan for health and well-being. Currently, it includes a focus on behavioral health, which connects to substance use. And because 1 in 4 10th and 12th graders in our community use tobacco products, we feel like it's integral to our community health plan. It's important to also note that that connects nicely to different elements of the city's strategic plan. And certainly health and well-being is connected to safe and secure, for example. So we believe these are definitely interconnected goals.
Thank you, Vicki. I mean, for me, I think one of the things is being a part of the steering committee, and I know we have other staff that speaks on that, is trying to find a way to better identify those pieces in the CHIP. If there's a responsibility for the city, how do we better articulate that, and how do we have those discussions in order to see that? Because if there is something that is, as we've discussed, if there's a requirement of us within the CHIP, then how do we better communicate that between the health department, the steering committee, and the city to make sure that we are doing that? If and when, what capacity, how can we do it, and is there a way for us to? So I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of put that in application. So whether the TRL is something that's directly, indirectly, I think it gives us a chance to use that as a starting point to have better discussions around the CHIP and what work the city is doing, where are their alignments, and how do we have those conversations about how to make that happen and what it takes to make that happen. So, you know, it's a little bit wonky right now. I don't have all the answers. You know, I think this is, you know, causing me to do a little bit more thinking and deep thought into it, but I wanted to be able to bring that together tonight so that we as commissioners, me as a representative of the steering committee, can be better thought partners and more accountable in that. So thank you for coming and speaking briefly on that.
Thanks.
Thanks. Any further questions? Not seeing any. I'll open it up for public comment since it's public comment out here.
Hi, this is Chris Flowers, and I'm just kind of confused because I've been hearing, I saw this report saying we need to basically limit the number of vape shops, I guess, but then hasn't the city manager been saying we need businesses to grow our tax base so it's not, the burden isn't all on private citizens? But now we have a market where vape shops are thriving and we're saying, hey, we need to limit this. That doesn't make sense. And maybe there's so many vape shops because the public loves what they're selling. I visit them, I buy from them. And so who the fuck are you all to take my choices away? So I just want to throw that out there. Also, I was just reading, and it sounds like we charged those businesses over $18,000 in license fees, but it sounds like we only spent $4,000 on this. Are we making money off the backs of smokers with this licensing stuff? Like, why should vape shop users have to pay more for their products from unnecessary licensing? And also, I noticed none of y'all wanted to start increasing fees on shops selling bacon or chocolate. Why is it you want to increase fees on people using vices that you aren't weak to? And also, who the hell are you all to give health orders to us? I mean, how about instead of getting rid of vape shops, y'all take a stand for public health and get rid of the bowl of candy y'all pig out on throughout the meeting? I saw joggers today, and they don't look anything like you out-of-shape couch potatoes. So who the hell are you all to come and start saying, we need to make laws for your health? When I look at you all, and I think I might be in better health than some of you all, and I sure as hell think most 18-year-olds are in better shape than you all. So I say, if you want to do something for public health, you look at your own health and start making changes there before you start taking it start fucking over 18 to 19 and 20-year-olds, and in the process, the rest of us who are buying other products, CBD, this is Delta 8. I buy marijuana, but Kansas won't let me, so I have to settle for this. And now you all want to start limiting the number of businesses I can go and buy this from. So on behalf of drug users everywhere, fuck you all. Thank you.
Hey, man. How come you didn't shut him down, Bart? Amber, how come you didn't scream out that point of order or something? Was that all germane? because he's right about the candy bowl. I mean, you should really go in the back room, because I got some footage of your ass tonight. God. But let's get back to the thing I really wanted to talk about on this. Amber mentioned the reporting that we need, and with the change of leadership with the shelter. You know, let's not forget that that's a shelter administrator out there that not only said that a woman couldn't bunk with another woman because she wasn't being raped right now, that's also the shelter director and his executive director, Kim, who exited the whistleblowers after that was blown up and put out in the public. On top of that, talking about reporting, you know, it's nice that you guys put out reports on your Facebook page that I'm blocked from. We're gonna get to that one, Craig. But those reports, you're putting out numbers that are very confusing in a way that doesn't make any sense, because you're claiming that you're reporting sets of numbers that we don't appear to have numbers from. HMIS, are you really reporting HMIS data to HUD? Because I have some serious questions about that, since I have some documents that indicate that some of these partners aren't even entering data into the HMIS. And that Cicely Thornton failed to schedule training to even get into HMIS. So when is the data going to come? We asked you guys about that a few weeks ago. And since she mentioned it tonight, asking about some, I don't even know that she knows what she's asking for, but we do. You guys are not entering data properly. And when you do enter it, you're reporting numbers in a way that are masking what's really happening. How many people are being exited into housing versus back out onto the street? How many of these people that you're claiming are getting shelter are actually coming from the street versus coming from a different shelter or moving from a different situation? And I'm talking about the affordable housing shit. You guys claim you house people out of shelter? Sorry, I got those two mixed up. But you guys claim you house people out of shelter. But those people that you're housing, they're not the vulnerable people that we're talking about, the ones standing out there. You're not housing them. The last thing I want to get to is I have yet to be able to get any kind of clarification or any kind of certainty from this city whether force is going to be employed on October 15th. You know, the last day of your Latin month, I see a couple Latinos out there that are homeless. And you're going to shit on them on the last day of Latino month, and I can't get a guarantee that it's not going to be forceful.
Time.
I'll be back up here in a minute to talk to you.
I got to say, I concur with what Chris was saying there about you guys giving health advice and being so out of shape. You know, matter of fact, I was just telling Michael just a little while ago, I was like, I've been coming to these meetings here for 2.5, going on 3 years, and Amber Sellers has been there the entire time. And you have not lost a single pound. You have not tried one bit whatsoever to work on your physical health at all. In fact, I think you're increasing, going the opposite way, which says a lot about you, not just for physical health, but it says a lot about you as an individual, and how miserable and lacking in self-esteem that I'm sure that you have. And then you sit up there and want to attack me while I'm speaking, and then play the victim when you get poked back a little bit, and then go run and hide back there in the corner because somebody said something about you. Says a lot about you. So 2.5 years going on 3 years, and then what, you guys are going to decide on what kind of health things that we should be doing, or the people should be doing? Do you see the problem with that at all, Amber? Maybe you could do some policy engineering and figure out some social impact there on that. Think you could? Maybe we could learn and unlearn about people. Remember saying that? That's quite a thing. How do you learn and unlearn about people there, Amber? In all of your infinite wisdom. Still curious to know where the threats are that you penned in your letter that was just reported by LJ World and Lawrence Times, uncritically, unquestionably. What threats, what crimes are you referring to that were made against you in this commission here that justifies you go hiding in the back there while the citizens come in and speak? What crimes? Surely you reported them, right, to the police, and then the police showed up and took it serious. And that happens, and of course the papers are going to report on that. I mean, they reported when some people showed up with some, bags of bricks and put them on some doorsteps. But if people were threatening you and you guys, surely there would be some sort of incident report, arrest, a report in the newspapers, because that's serious stuff. The commissioners are being threatened. Your life is being threatened. Your physical well-being is being threatened. That is serious stuff. Where are those? Where's that evidence? Where are those reports, Amber? So you just said that in that thing you penned, and then of course the papers just print it. You know, talk about misinformation. Talk about misinformation. That's a straight up lie. So then you go hide in the back corner there, play the victim.
Okay. Any on Zoom?
Yes, just one moment. Stephen Watts.
Is anyone speaking? Can I go?
It's not general public comment yet.
Well, I'll be back in a second.
We'll be there in a second, sir.
Stephen Watts.
Hi, thank you. You know, with respect to the city manager's report, it is a valuable opportunity for the city manager to report to us, as well as the town commission, what's going on in the city manager's office and how things are going on. You know, out of that office, we were told in the last couple of weeks that due to the budget restrictions, there would be a necessity to deplete services, that there's going to have to be a cutback in services. And so the city manager, please, needs to report to us. If the town has to cut back services in order to fund the $13,000 per person that the police department has paid to send 2 people to a 3-week sojourn, including $907 per person, a bounty for food, even though for the 3 weeks, all of the food has been paid for with the $11,350 registration fee for 2 police people. That's $26,000 that could be used to, you know, fix the waiting pool. But I understand we have a budget constraint. So we're going to reduce services, but at the same time, the city manager's office approves this kind of travel. I have a suggestion that the city manager's office may want to review a moratorium on these exotic sojourns for all departments, given that there's a stated need to cut services. The manager needs to report on these things for us, please. Additionally, much has been said, ballyhooed, about these reporting problems on the internet web pages. That's a good idea. However, the system that has been set up tracks data and sells it through the third-party vendor that is running the operation. There is an opportunity from the vendor to go as a guest and not have to register for anything. But our town has chosen not to implement that option. The city manager needs to report in the city manager report, please, why we have to give up our name, rank, and serial number like prisoners of war in order to report a pothole. I think there's just a coding mistake, and we need to hire some more staff who know how to properly code the internet web pages. Please, let's use the city manager's report time to produce and provide valuable information. There's more, but we'll do that later. Thank you.
Jeffrey Hepler.
Hello again, Commission. Jeffrey Hepler, 66044. 2 things. First, in regard to the last 2 items, I'm just trying to show up as a citizen, and I have no freaking clue what is going on with these items. I could have done my background research, but a little introduction would be helpful. Okay, second thing. Lawrence has an image problem, and to stifle small business growth and establishment does not help that image problems. So that's all. Thank you.
That's all the comments, Mayor.
Okay. Yes.
May I make a comment?
Yeah, sure.
Good evening, Nancy Snow. I take it that Commissioner Sellers has brought up the issue of the LCS leadership, and I'd like to comment on that as a future agenda item for this commission, to bring to the attention of the commission something that was reported in the Lawrence Times but had been made known to me earlier, which was that a young woman who had been sexually assaulted at the Amtrak camp sought shelter at Pallet Village, which is run by the head of LCS, and that gentleman, that young woman asked to bunk with a friend of hers. The head of LCS said to the young woman, the friend, within hearing of the woman who was sexually assaulted, well, she isn't being raped now, is she? I repeat this because this is far below the level of a trained service provider, and if his tenure is to be continued, I would strenuously object to that on the basis of this comment. I did subsequently meet the young woman who was sexually assaulted. She told me about her experiences, and she cried as she said it. Now, if you have compassion in your hearts, please do act on behalf of a vulnerable young woman who was traumatized more than once and was subsequently, I believe that the word is exited, but people are thrown out of Pallet Village. They are expelled without their belongings. They can come back for them later. A woman in a wheelchair had this happen to her. So there is some treatment of unhoused people at Pallet Village that is putting them back on the streets. If you do close Amtrak, there will not be enough shelter. People will be on the streets again. But I bring this to your attention because all of the little pieces here have to be in place to get people moved from camps to shelter to housing, and that has not been happening. I will expand on this further in public comment. Thank you.
Hello, Alchemy Roanoke. So similar thing to what Nancy Snow was just talking about. I've talked to residents, current and former, of Pallet Village. A lot of them are, well, a number of them are my friends. And I have heard nothing but just stories about how the conditions at Pallet Village are very, very high barrier, about how people are evicted, exited, but they're evicted for minor infractions, for things that had these people been rich or even, had a landlord, would have been completely unthinkable to evict them for. The people here are living under really what is close to prison conditions. And I'm very disappointed to see that the directors of these programs continue to tout them as solutions and refuse to even let Lawrence Times journalists, who have been consistently willing to report what has been actually going on in these camps and in the Pallet Village, not allowing them even onto the premises. There has been just a blackout of information. I happen to be friends with a shelter worker, so I know a bit more as well about the mistreatment that the workers, who a lot of the times are prevented from doing what is best for the campers or what is helpful for the campers. in the Lawrence Times article, a director or a manager, I'm not quite sure what her title is, said that all workers at Pallet Village had received trauma-informed training. I was informed that was false, that training has not happened. And so we see those sorts of blunders on the parts of staff who haven't been trained. And what I would ask, and what many of us are asking, is to not just have more money thrown at these services and have leadership shuffled around, but to have actual sustainable, helpful, low-barrier shelter options that can aid people into getting into permanent housing.
Hi, David Baston. Just listening to that stuff about LCS. I know tonight in claims you guys all of you just approved $669,289.75 to go to LCS. That was in claims tonight. So with postponing the questions that need answered, I think we need to, I don't know how soon we can get what Amber was wanting, questions answered, along with a lot of the public that have requested information from them and not been able to get any information. And I didn't look up and see how much we've gave them this year, but I'm sure it's close to $2 million. So I think we should be able, the public definitely should be able to request information and get it. Definitely, if the city council wants information now, they should be able to give it now. Yeah, because we are giving them a lot of money, taxpayer money. So, thank you.
Okay. I'll go ahead and move us on to the commission calendar. Anything on the calendar?
Just real quick, Sherry, on the 24th, you have a 1 o'clock with the local government tour. I had that on my calendar at 2. Can you just let me know if it's 1 or 2?
Yes.
You can send me an email later. You don't have
Yeah.
to tell me now, but.
Okay, can you just say that one more time? Just want to make sure I get the right one.
24th.
24th, okay.
So 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock?
Okay.
I think previously I put it on my calendar at 2, but now it's
Okay.
1 on this calendar.
Okay, I'll make sure we get that updated and let you know.
Anything else regarding the calendar? Commissioner Larson?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and give us a little time here for anybody to go ahead and exit the room before we start open public comment that wants to.